Hello and welcome to BonkTable. I'm Mass and this is my co-host Mike. And today we're going to be talking about the scenario packet for 2023.
And decay.
Oh yeah, the rule of the week is decay. Should we just get on to that, or do you want to do news for Parabellum?
I can't really think of news to get into, but if you can think of anything, then yeah.
So
What's news and exciting? Oh yeah, I mean, other than Army lists coming out.
Yeah, that's kind of the big one everyone's like hoping and waiting for.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. What was it? What we know so far after talking to some of the devs on the Discord and posting the restart the clock meme over and over again until they finally got the idea is that it should be coming out near the end of May. This is recorded on the 22nd, so by the time this comes out, hopefully it'll be there for everyone and we can pick on something else for news.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't even know what other news it would be at that point. This isn't exactly like a high action, 24/7
Cable
roller coaster of events in terms of a game, and that's not a bad thing by any means, but it's nice to have a little news other than me just talking about dinosaurs that are slowly bankrupting me.
You buy how many of those tauntadors and drum beats are you buying? Are you getting two each, so 4?
I definitely I want to buy one of each.
Okay, to start.
I don't know if I should, but that's what I want to do. Unless they get a big point cut, and then I would gladly, Would
you try to do full dino?
That's always been my goal.
Oh, okay. Well then,
They don't want the man doesn't want that.
The man. Oh my god.
I've been trying to be full dinosaurs since day one.
Yeah, that is true. You have been going full dinosaur, like, because I remember you used to play a bunch of hunting pack, and you're like, "These are bad. Please stop." And then you were doing okay with the apexes, but recently they've just been not carrying their weight at all.
Yeah, but I mean, apparently they're coming back.
Yeah.
So the dinosaurs, I don't know. It's a weird place because I mean they want you to play orcs, but they want you to play dinosaurs, and I think they've been. That's been a component of the balancing that they've been doing. Like I don't know.
Well,
I've heard people talking in the Discord about Wadroon getting a new unit maybe, but the more I think about that, like I don't necessarily actually trust that isn't just a lot of hullabaloo and.
If they were doing a new unit, they would kind of appear on the what is it? The army builder. Like it would be a non-pictured face on the army builder.
Yeah, but they didn't like the new unit that Dwight got when 2.0 came out. That didn't show up in the army builder until the 2.0 army list came out, which was after the 2.0 rules, just like they did this time around. So it could be a similar type of deal where we're gonna and also Bound didn't get deleted until that occurred as well. So because and I'm sure other things happen for other factions, but I only understand things that impact me directly. So
yeah, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can't speak to any other factions. Oh, but the Dweg, and it's only the Dweg because
what?
To hell with them.
To hell with them. What are you? Okay. Do you want to do a little bit of hot takes before we get to the rule of the week, or do you want to do it after the rule of the week? And the hot takes would be you get to put out one hot take per faction of what your prediction is for each faction is going to receive or lose or stand neutral in the army change update.
Oh, yikes.
Do you want to do that? You know what? I guess we're doing it now, then we'll do the rule of the week.
Yeah. I'm a lot of these are gonna be really I'm not ready for this, so this is gonna be some pretty wild off the hip
okay, we're gonna start
off the hip opinion.
We're gonna start an app order, so 100 Kingdoms. Hot take, go.
Oh fuck. Piss. Shit. No, for 100 Kingdoms, like I mean we kinda know that horses are coming back.
I don't know. Like they've been pushing some stuff for the horses, but they haven't fixed what I feel is the big thing by making them go back to movement 8.
So here's my double take.
Oh
They're
God.
gonna keep shooting in general the same across the board to everyone's massive shock, but all the cav is gonna go up like 4 inches movement. So
Doesn't
it's
matter.
just like shoot or be hoofed.
As it should be. I would be terrified if some horses were coming at me because currently I'm lucky if the horses do something.
Yeah, currently I'm like I got a solid round, 2 rounds maybe to just lick shots into these horses before they get into me.
Yeah, and usually just
But
like, oh, a horse made it. Let's plunge them to death with our fists, and you're good.
I think if it was just like arrows or fucking horses, though, like they shouldn't do that. This is a bad suggestion, but it would be sick. You'd love it
I would love it.
for a couple weeks.
Get nerfed back into the ground.
Yeah.
Spires, hot take, go.
Um, I need to just take a moment and think because we can always just edit out really conspicuous pauses if that's what it comes down to.
Or I'm gonna leave this moment in so that, and then it'll just go straight to the actual answer.
Yeah,
My
like
go ahead.
you have to do it in that like early millennium Adult Swim style.
Oh God.
Like where you let the awkward silences hang to an absurd degree, and then there's just like a really loud, turned up shriek for no reason.
I should rewatch Aqua Team Hunger Force and just see how they do their transitions because I love that show.
Yeah, that's
My problem with doing a
Man.
hot take for Spires. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no,
Oh.
I need some time to think, so please.
My issue is that I don't know what the fuck is going on in that entire faction. Like, whenever I play our local Spires player, he's like, all right, I got this, I got this, I got this. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he does stuff, and I'm like, I hate this so much, but I have no idea. Like, the words are longer than 4 syllables, so I'm just like, oh, fuck. What does this mean?
It's worse than Wadroon, where you have to just take it on faith that everything that's happening is supposed to be happening for the most part.
At least with Rodroon, they can just show me the chant chart, and I can quickly read it and be like, oh, okay, cool. And then with Spires, it's like, oh, I got this thing over here and this thing over here. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
It's like they're playing The Binding of Isaac. It's like they're all these weird synergies, and now it's like, oh well, he shoots a gun, but because I have this upgrade, it's like 3 times the size, and it's shaped like a pentagram, and it makes your guys explode, and I get health back, and then I lose health, and then I get health back, and then I lose health.
Is that-
And then you take hits based on how much health I lose, and then I get health back,
Is that the hot take for Spires, where it's just like,
and then I take decay hits.
all their
They're hard.
all their shit gets like more streamlined, so people can figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah. My hot take for Spires is no, I don't know. I was gonna make a joke that doesn't make sense. I was gonna try to do some of my signature flowchart humor, which is just make a reference to how something should be flowcharted, but like flowcharting wouldn't make this any clearer or less clear. I'm full of shit.
No, it's already, you need a flowchart to figure this out.
But my hot take is they should take the crazy combo that I learned and then forgot about from 1.0, where you generate a bunch of decay and then push it on to somebody else's unit with your HQ regiment or your character regiment. And they should make that one. They should dial that one up so much that it becomes the only build for the faction, and then I will spend I don't know, half to $750,000 on a Spire's army.
Or yeah,
So that's
there's probably
because that's the one thing I want to do is the stupid Magic the Gathering ass annoying brain genius combo. That's not really a hot take about them. That's more of a hot take about how insufferable I am. But that's all I can really speak to with. All I can really speak to about the Spires is myself.
all right. Well, there we go. I would maybe I just need to play them more. Maybe I just need like the names, because I always look at their masteries. I'm like, this isn't a massively long list, so maybe that should be cleaned up a little just to be better. Maybe the abomination should be better, or not better, but like, it seems like it just shoots in, flails at somebody, and then dies. And maybe like it's fine if it dies. Maybe it should get a little more offensive buff just so it actually does damage before it dies, because that thing just insta dies the moment after it does its clash.
I don't want to be like a shill or anything, but I think what's happening with heavies in this game in a big way is that everybody hears heavy and sees a big guy and generates like expectations in their head for what it's going to do on the tabletop, and then Parabellum actually has a totally different thing that they're doing and going for. And I mean, both are equally valid, so it's not that one is right or one is wrong, but I think it's just like, and the Abomination is a really good example of that. I feel like, because it's statted so weird for a heavy unit, like movement 10, clash 2, 10 wounds. Like, I honestly, so I think generally speaking, another more general hot take for the game that I'm hoping we're going to see in 2.0, and it's they've hinted at to some degree, or at least in a indirect and then indirect on another level way, is that hopefully monsters and well, not heavies in general, but monster regiments are going to get tougher.
Yeah.
Like 10 wounds seems very papery, even with defense 3, resolve 4. Like, that's not good. Like, you can
cut through that.
If something can do 10 wounds, even if it only hits 5 of them, like, so that's sort of the way that I've started to evaluate risk in this game now, is like, what's the output of the unit playing into me? Can it break me in one activation? Can it shatter me in one activation? Can it wipe me in one activation? And that's like, when you're into 10 wounds, like, all of those things are kind of on the table, even from what would be normally low impact, like, attacks, or like even with a fairly decent defensive stat line, because like D3R4 is actually not bad.
Oh yeah. Well, I last game I played was into Dwag, and that's on the YouTube channel if anyone wants to go check that out. I had probably, I think, 3 stands of Steel Legion, 2 in the front, 1 in the back as a supporting stand, and they did, I want to say, like 8 wounds to Hellbringer Drake or whatever, who has 14, and then it died on resolve and it was just dead in 1 round. Like, yay! Yeah. Like, it doesn't have the survivability as just stacking bigger bricks of guys to increase your wound capability, because it's just the monster. So maybe monsters getting more wounds, just base, like, because monsters are kind of cost to be like 3 stands of a heavy infantry cavalry unit, give or take. So, but they get to get played around more because they are only 1 stand. Like the Abomination compared to unit of, let's cleave 1 here, Brute Drones, Incarnate Sentinels, they're 190. Brute Drones, because Brute Drones, they don't have any cleave, but each Brute Drone is doing 5 attacks each. There's 3 of them. They're both same cost, 150 points. Same clash. They both have 5 wounds. Like, the Brute Drones at 150 are doing more attacks, have more wounds, same defensive stat line. The only negative is that they are movement 6 compared to movement 10. Like, the stanza dudes seem to be doing more output and more raw defensiveness compared to a lot of monsters. Like, the only time a monster starts to get above a minimum size unit of infantry is when it gets into that wound, like, above 12, or it does more than 12 attacks. But even then, things that are designed to kill will have more attacks. Things that are designed to be tankier will have more wounds. So,
yeah,
like, the Abomination is very much like a throwaway piece, a very cheap, just fast throwaway piece. And maybe it's Subfire's objective killer, because it can do a bunch of damage to objectives because it's a heavy, similar to the Mountain Jotnar, and he's also way faster.
Yeah, it's a really I don't know. You can't play it like a normal heavy, or it's just gonna get slapped. But you can, like, I've seen our player locally whip it, into the back line and take an objective or a marker that it would, no other unit would be worth
And
committing to and things like that. 10 attacks at Clash 2 with Flurry is like, it's just okay, but it's okay in like an interesting way.
Yeah, you're it's gonna inspire to 3, so it's gonna hit over. It's like it's gonna get more than 5 hits out of the Flurry, and because of that, is that our hot take? Abomination gets changed for the better.
Yeah, I mean, Abomination should get a buff, but that's not even a hot take because a lot of people think it already.
Well, it could be a lukewarm take.
I guess, and I think most of our hottest takes are skewed by the fact that our player really isn't running what I think probably constitutes a meta list. So
no,
we're missing out on a lot of that nonsense.
He is playing more Avatara brute heavy lists, and then getting a unit of marksman drones in there just to shoot at people. So
yeah, but none of those Vanguard clone infiltrator nonsense that I think would probably even turn me against shooting me,
the bow lord.
The shootster. Yeah.
Should we get on to Dwag? You're the hot take there. Come on, let the hate flow through you. I've been watching Star Wars.
The garbage. No, sorry, I shouldn't have was over the line. So I'm just looking at the thing here to see, because I'm realizing that I didn't really even necessarily understand how this mechanic works. Oh, okay, so apparently it's just where do they even get these damn tokens that have
it's in there? The
creeds. The creeds. They need to rein that in. That alone would go so far. I mean, I think they need to get a general stat, like defensive stat reduction, just as a faction. This is not a hot take. Any sane person would look at this army and tell you that.
Well, or their stuff needs to be cost more to accept those points. Because right now, like,
well, funny, I was going to suggest both a little bit. But maybe I'm just mad.
Well, that's fair. I did catch our local Dwag player at the airport a couple weeks ago. I was like, hello there, and he's like, hello there, and I'm like, I'm gonna have dinner with your family, and he's like, okay. So he couldn't do anything, and he couldn't say anything rude to me.
That's an insanely good threat.
I trapped him. He couldn't get away, and we made lists and looked over Dwag, and one of the things is that Steelforge are coming down, so we worked together to build him like a Steelforge list, and everything he wanted to take in the list, he could easily do with all his upgrades. I think there was like a little like 10-point thing at the end, and that was it. Like, it wasn't even choices or thoughts. He just got all the things he wanted to play with without any hassle at all. Like, that's not a good sign for an army, just because it's like there was no decision making to get all the toys you wanted to play with. Like, whenever I play 100 Kingdoms, I'm like, okay, I want to fill out the Steel Legion blocks because I know half of them are going to die before they even make it into combat. I need those 3 stands to make it into combat. Okay, cool. All right, I want to deck out my Imperial Officer with stuff so that Steel Legion, what does finally make it to combat, can survive even longer. Okay, cool. All right, now what am I taking for a Theist Priest? What am I taking for, or am I taking a Theist Priest? Am I taking something else? Like, I start looking at my other stuff, and it kind of comes down to, like, I've spent so many points trying to get the main work units ready and operational that a lot of my other stuff isn't very effective, and then I have weak areas in my list what then get killed and overrun by. So
yeah,
and like I'm deciding, what I want to do, where do I want to move stuff, and it's just like, yeah, like there's a lot more choice in my list building, and that kind of, when I do build lists in 100 Kingdoms, I am, how do I say this? I kind of have an idea what I want to go with. I initially fill out that idea, and then I start building things that will support and help that idea out. And there's a lot of times where I just don't feel like I have enough points left over to add that support in, because either the main idea is too expensive, the support's too expensive, I'm not getting enough out of my things to really justify. Like, while when we were building Dwag lists, it was like he was running like 2 units Steel Forged, I think it was either 1 or 2 Hellfire Drakes, a unit of Fire Forge, a decked out Tempered Sorcerer. Actually, I can pull up this list right now. I'm going to do that because I built it in my phone, and I think he made a slight adjustment to it. My list. I called it Forge Daddy. Okay, here we go. So it is Tempered Sorcerer, full Arcane, School of Fire. He couldn't get Focus, but it's okay. He has 3 Fire Forge, 3 Hold Warriors, and then 2-3 things of Infernal Automatas. Then he has a Tempered Sorcerer riding on the Hellbringer Drake with another unit of Hold Warriors. Then he has a Tempered Seal Saper with Hold Warriors, Fire Forge, and 2 units of Steel Forge. Like, this is all min units, but he got this without working on it. Like, it all just flew and fit in really nicely. The only thing he was kind of like bummed out on is that he doesn't have Focus for that buffed up Tempered Sorcerer. What's not even the end of the world, because that guy's already got pre-7 with a free auto success.
Yeah. It's yeah, and I feel that for sure as a like when I'm list building with Wadroon, like I'm fighting for my life, and it's hard to articulate when we've talked about it in the past, so I just haven't really. But like the way the Wadroon breakpoints work, it's really hard to get more than 8 regiments, and when half of those are lights, it's hard to get an actual like sort of framework to score effectively together.
Yeah, because you need to score with mediums.
Yeah, it's so this isn't, again, I guess we're going faction by faction so that I can give one really general hot take about the game. Is one thing that I would really like to see actually is the like, and this is a problem that I have with Wadroon, or that I've been running into with Wadroon, that has complicated my list building in a way that I don't think adjusting would impact the game negatively, is character points. Like the base point costs for characters could perhaps go lower, because I run into situations with Wadroon where I've technically got enough points to put in another regiment, which I desperately need. Like an MSU of almost anything would be really handy, but I'm already at 4 and 4. So where are they going? So now I have to tack on, like, it's not a bar, like a one MSU is not something you can just throw in a list when you have to take a 100-point tax to throw it in there as well.
Yeah, because all your characters basically start at 100 except for the Predator. All your characters are 100 except, so you got the Mounted Predator, it's 110, Predator it's 90, and all the rest are 100, while I think in my 100 Kingdom faction, yeah, we got like 80, 75, like the Imperial Officer's 75 points, Noblelord's 80, 90s for the Theus Priest and Sword Commander. Like, my 110s come from the Mounted Noble Lord and Prior Commanders. Like, I have such a better option of cheap characters than you.
Yeah.
And, like, just your base cost of everything, I want to say, like, good or decent or good picks in your faction are just way higher than a lot of other things. Like, the cheapest thing was your Braves at 115. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have, as we've discussed, problems that sort of make them, they're not as much of a bargain as it necessarily seems, because you have to, like, best case, or yeah, the easiest way to solve the problem that they have is to throw a character in there, but
then your character's trapped with that regiment and not being able to diverse yourself or pick and choose to other regiments.
It's not bad, but at the same time, it's one of those situations where it's I've run into list building situations where, like, potentially I have to pick something over Braves because I'm not able to design things in a way that gives them a character babysit them, because my characters are dedicated elsewhere. It's going to take some weird, like, seek new escort swaps that I can't rely on, so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna incorporate that into my plans at list building. I tried it once and I didn't feel good about it, so that's not really something I do. I know that, like, I've seen definitely people who do that. God bless you.
Yeah,
I'm glad that works for you, but not me.
My problem with Seek New Escort is that I need to, like, line everything up, and then I line up the previous turn, and then I forget to do it, or I can't safely get there. Like, I need to have stuff activate before or else, because, like, the board state changes. Like, the game gets played out and things change, or I forget about stuff. Like, I'm more worried about other more immediate things than seeking New Escort a couple times, unless the character is immediately going to die. But the idea is there, it just doesn't kind of pan out as well as maybe I would like in a couple instances. For Nords, can I state what I would like to see changed?
Hit me.
Bow chosen going down to brush 4. That's it.
Oh yeah.
I
mean that,
and that's a teeny thing. Like it does, like you don't need to have the piercing shot change. You don't need to have the volley 3 change. Just go down from barrage 5 to barrage 4. Like and that does change and affect a lot of other things because it's too many shots. That's what I'm getting at.
yeah. It's a lot of shots, especially when you get in a half range.
Yeah.
And especially because there's some stuff that I haven't done necessarily, but like you can pump them a little bit with character artifacts. There's the one that gives them President's Choice, Torrential Fire.
Right. As I go to try and find your treasure troves.
I should know it by now. I've been obsessing over the Nords list for weeks and weeks at a time, pretending
the character they gain rapid volley, special rapid volley. Stand with the special reference volley action, each hit roll of 1 causes an additional automatic hit on the target. The additional does not pay for any special. Yeah, like because you can throw a conning gear with rapid volley into a unit of bow chosen, you can just sit around with them.
Yeah, it's a way. So that's something that I haven't really messed with because I keep doing the brick of
You do a
Huskarls, which underperforms for me to such a degree that like, why do I do it?
Now the Volva and the Valkyries are better anvil than the Huskarls.
Yeah, but I mean the Huskarls are really an anvil shaped hammer. I think.
Also, the conning gear is
ultimately
medium.
like, yeah, but
go ahead. I'm interrupting you.
No. It's I feel cagey about putting him in such a vulnerable unit, but like those bow chosen are really just a real spitfire. They last way longer than you ever expect they're going to. So like,
yeah, it's because they're like evasion 2 and 5 wounds each, and it's just a pain to kill them off. Also, if anyone gets into melee with them, the conning just goes patty cake and beats the shit out of anything. So
yeah,
it's even worse trying to tie them up because the conning is for sure going to free them up at that point.
Yeah, it's something actually I might go back and experiment with.
Do it. You might have a fun time. Also, it's a medium character and a light unit. Turn 2 scoring.
Yeah.
Done.
But so jumping the gun here, but so I had been like with the Nords list that I've been doing, one of the main sort of axioms for list building that I've been looking at is having the blooded in a unit of stalkers so that he can rip up the board turn 1 and get onto a point and then start capping it as of turn 2. And I played 3 or 4 games for sure, maybe even 5 since I started doing that, and it's never once enabled scoring that I wasn't already able to line up. So
what, for you it's not working out?
Well, it's something that I thought was going to be really valuable, but I'm finding, generally speaking, its value is a little bit overblown because it's between everything else that I can generally get the dogs onto with a 14-inch move. It's kind of not hard to get them onto some objective.
Well, then
so
you can have both to score 2 objectives.
Well, and that's what I've been doing, but like it's again, it's in practical terms, like what I'm finding game to game is that they don't need to be doing that. Like it always works out that like they can, and it's fine, but like it's not this essential move that it's been every time. Whereas in contrast, when I play Woodrune, throwing a queen in those raptors is paid off every single time. So maybe it's just the games that I'm playing are giving me like a weird bias, or
maybe it's the faction like that. Like different factions play differently. Should we continue our hot takes for the last 2 factions and we can actually get onto our topic? Or sorry, the rule of the week, then our topic.
Yeah, but I feel like there's more than 2 factions left.
Well,
we gotta pick it up. Oh, well, I guess yeah. Okay,
we did Woodrune. You hot takened them. I don't know if that's.
I hot took it.
Old Dominion. You know what? A big one I would like to see changed in Old Dominion is their memories of old are no longer stuck to being draw events. So that allows them to do draw events off of relics or characters or already abilities they have existing. And when they hit those different tiers of dark power, they just get those abilities on top of their regular stat line. So it doesn't reduce them in limit to what they want, because they can only activate one draw event per turn. And it's like, okay, well, now I can't do other stuff if I have multiple.
The multiple draw events thing is proving to, like, I think sometimes it's good to add that texture and to add that choice, but I don't think it's always good, and I don't think that they've necessarily found the balance as of yet. But I mean, it's something that maybe we will see something like that, I think, actually, if maybe not exactly that. But I don't remember the reason why that I thought we would see that, or the logic that was underpinning that. But because I keep looking at text, at, like, another rule book for a different army that's distracting me. So they're like, I think that the reason why I think that we are potentially going to see some kind of change there is twofold. One is, like, I think that the reason that it's a draw event for a while was more so like
what is an existing system they could tack it onto to make it work?
Well, it was a gameplay mechanic that was designed to, like, feel a certain way first, like the way that the spooky skeletons, like, gather up power, and then it goes from being like something that they've got to, like, something that they just don't really have, to something that they, like, summon their key powers to activate, to finally something that they just have. And then I think that the second thing was the way, like, the interactions were designed to give them that double memories of old interaction that's happening. But given the generally double, like, stacking draw events and stuff has proven to maybe not have worked out the way that I think they maybe wanted, I think it's quite possible that we'll see some kind of shift there for sure.
No, it just helped them out, because then they don't have to worry about kind of like picking and choosing their draw events, because it's like, okay, you're dark power tier 3, you get all these choices, but it's like, well, I kind of wanted all of them. It's like,
yeah,
sure, I'm gonna pick the best one that I think, but like, wouldn't I just try and get all of them? Yeah,
and that's, I mean, with by the same token, in one rune, like, the queen having to choose between giving someone fanatic and healing, I don't think it's a bad thing, overall. Like, obviously, just being able to do whatever I want every time twice would be awesome, but in terms of making me have to make meaningful choices on a given turn, that's not a bad way to do it.
Yeah. For city states, I think the biggest complaint I've heard from the Clockwork Greeks is that they want the monsters, like their giant colossal people, to be better at casting their spells, because they need like 4 successes. They're a priest too, and whenever they do damage, they get a bunch of dice. But like, what people have been saying is that the odds are like they have a 1 in 3 chance of actually pulling it off to do any damage within their attacks.
That might need some fine tuning. I think it's it's a neat idea, and I do like mechanics that give texture in that way, like we were just saying with the previous one as well. But yeah, I haven't really looked into the math of it at all. But maybe if it needs to be tightened up to make it easier to pull off overall, then that'd
be good. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. People want their big models, their Apex Predators, their Jotnars, their like all their whatever these things are called, their Greek chiseled ab gods, to be doing something and be effective, because this is your big centerpiece model. And if your big centerpiece model isn't being effective or doing stuff, it's kind of like, well, why am I bringing the big centerpiece model, and why am I even getting the big centerpiece model?
Yeah.
Like, for myself, my big centerpiece model would be the Crimson Towers, because they're currently my biggest horses, and paint them up real nice. I like them. You can hit me up on the Discord if you want to see a photo. But they're like, these are my big centerpiece model, and if they're not doing well, it's kind of like, well, why am I grabbing or going through those big centerpiece models when I could go for, like, let's say the Men at Arms are doing better. Well, the Men at Arms are probably one of the first sculpts this entire game, and it's like, oh, I might want to bring out the thing that looks good.
Yeah. That's that's kind of a.
You can tell me if I'm wrong. That's fair.
No. I don't. It's not that I think you're wrong. It's just that I think that it's a tough one overall design wise. Like, I definitely feel you as a person with double dinosaurs, who bought their second dinosaur 1 week before, or no, not 1 week, days before 2.0 dropped.
Did you get a second dinosaur days before 2.0 dropped?
Yeah.
Can I state my personal gripe of version 2? This is my big gripe. I'm gonna let this one out. So, Crimson Towers were released in late November for myself, and I got 4 boxes. I built 2 boxes, and I built them. I painted. I played them up, and I was like, okay, sweet. And then we hear in January we were initially going to have our tournament, but then we heard that version 2 is going to come out in January, so we moved it to March. I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. By that point, I'll have my other 2 boxes built and painted. It'll be great. I'll have my 4 Crimson Towers, because I'll bring a 4 Crimson Tower list. Version 2 comes out, and the Crimson Towers basically get over the head 3 times by the Nerf bat. And I'm annoyed because these models have been out for 2 months, and then they just got nerfed. Like, on top of buying a model for how it looks, I also buy it for how it plays, because I'm a player first, painter second. So it's kind of annoying when you've had something out for 2 months and you're expecting it to be decent or relevant for at least like a year, maybe 2, before it gets sidelined for something else or better. Like, it's still in that toolbox you have of things you'll look at to actually play with in your faction. So, like, I was pretty annoyed. You heard me rant about it at the store. Like, I was pretty annoyed about it. And it was just like, God, I have built 3 out of the 4 boxes because I needed to fill out a couple stands for the list I was playing in the March tournament. But that 4th box is still not built and still in the wrapping, just on my shelving, and I have no idea if I'm ever going to get around to building it. But originally, back in 1.15, when they were first released, I was totally down to playing 4 boxes of these things. So now for myself, I'm kind of like, I will buy 2 boxes to start with everything, just so I don't get burnt again, because I got burnt.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I feel like there's an analogous experience that I had with one of my armies. It's just not coming to me. I mean, other than the dinosaurs. But,
yeah.
The dinosaurs were very strong. They probably needed a nerf. They didn't need as much of a nerf as they got. So I've been personally guaranteed over Discord in a post that was made to everyone.
Yeah.
That dinosaurs are getting an upgrade. So, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll find the balance there. But
was that before or after my Mad Max meme post?
I believe that was I probably it was the Mad Max thing that got us that. So
thank goodness.
There. Yeah.
I'm a huge Mad Max.
Yeah, because I was so furious. All the 100K players kept crowing and getting the worm, and not me.
Not
so you. I had to be a baby and get the worm.
Oh my God! Should we go to our our rules? Let's get on to decay.
Yeah.
That was a larger topic or segue as we expected, but
it's the story of this podcast at this point.
I know.
I actually I showed my partner that we were on the apps now, and she looked at the episodes and she's like, "These are really long."
Not even.
That's it. The only notes.
I was like, I don't know, like the reason why I kind of want them long is so that people can enjoy them during their, like, a car ride, a trip, or some people have, like, hour-long daily commutes. So if the episode's 2 hours, it's like, oh, okay, so this is going to entertain me for one day there and back. Like, that's great. I travel a lot by aircraft, so like I'm sitting on a plane for like 3 hours. Well, I'm gonna go listen to something, so I wasn't finding that for Conquest. So I asked Mike to, hey, let's go make it together.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of podcasts I listen to are really long, and I had a shot, multi parts and 2 or 3 episodes at a time, or 2 or 3 hours at a time. That is to say, type thing. So it's something that definitely people like, but like definitely we just are a chatty couple of hens for sure. That's undeniable. So
we have a main topic, and we will eventually get to it. Enjoy yourselves.
Maybe
have a good time. Yeah, we'll just sidetrack.
Yeah.
If we just keep, if we keep doing hot takes, are we gonna like rename the podcast?
Yeah, the hot table.
Hot table. All right.
The hot take bull. The hot take bull.
God damn it.
Yeah, I know. I don't. I'm not even happy about that one. But rule of the week.
Are you reading it off or am I?
I can read it if you'd like, or if you'd prefer. I really don't.
I'll take it because you have more discussion about it than I do, because I've only felt its effects when people throw it on me. Okay, so rule of the week. Finally got there. Decay. So we got the Decay X rule, and it states, at the end of a regiment's deactivate regiment step, every stand of the regiment rolls X number of dice, where X is equal to the Decay X value. For each roll of a 5 or 6, the regiment suffers 1 wound. Wounds caused from this special rule do not cause morale tests. If a regiment has several instances of Decay X, add all the X values together. If a regiment contains a character stand is affected by the Decay X special rule, then the character stand suffers Decay X as well. All wounds are allocated as per the allocating wounds and remove casualties sections of the rules. Example, applying Decay 2 and then Decay 3 would equal Decay 5. I'm going to expand upon this for a little bit here. So, some of the key points, or some of the key things to take away from that is multiple instances of decay, even though it doesn't say plus X like a lot of other rules do, this one does stack. So that's something to be aware of. So if you're being affected by multiple instances of decay, they do all stack together, and you do have to watch out for that. So sometimes you'll be hit by Decay 2, then Decay 3, then Decay 4. Well, you've now just been suffering Decay 9 per stand, and it's a stand-by-stand basis. So a lot of the times you'll get hit by Decay 3, and you'll be rolling 3 dice per stand. So this will affect larger units more than it will smaller units, because there's more stands in a larger unit. And you're going to roll your dice. Every 5 or 6, that's a wound. So you do not get a save for this. So you won't get your defensive roll or your evasion roll for it.
I mean, ostensibly, this is just the roll that you're making is the save, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess you get like a 4 down save. Well, it's pretty good. Like 4 out of 6 per dice. Like, that's actually pretty good.
Well, it would be a 2 down or a 5 down.
Well, I know it's 5 or 6, so it'd be a 4 down. Yeah, and then it causes a wound. And also it doesn't cause morale, so you just take damage. This one's a little weird. Once you play with it and interact it with a bit, it does become more fluid. But once you first getting affected by decay, it's like, I don't know what's happening. And that was how I was very much when I was starting to get decay on me, or I saw decay things happen on other things. Mike, do you want to talk more about it? Because you do use it more than I do.
Yeah, it's so my main experience with it is just as a malice for activating Burnout on Warbred, which, if you haven't heard, Warbred, the Wadroon unit, they're a medium brute, and they have Burnout, which you can activate, and they get a movement and a clash buff, but in return they have to take the decay rolls, a decay of 2.
That's not bad.
In return for this benefit. Yeah, so it's definitely, it's gone both ways for me. I've had times where I've activated it and I've paid the price, and other times where I've activated it and paid no price whatsoever.
Oh, it's decay 3.
Decay 3, excuse me. Yeah. I thought it was decay 2, but even then, that's not that bad. 9 dice, and you're looking for to avoid 5s and 6s. You generally.
You also have 5 wounds per stand, so
yeah. So
you'll probably, like, one of the 3 stands is gonna get super beat up, but still be alive.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. You're probably not gonna break over it or lose more than a stand at the absolute most. So it's it's a fair trade off for what you get with that unit, because that's one of the things that and I think maybe that's part of why they underperform for me personally versus other people who seem to swear by them, is that because I'm afraid of decay, conservative with activating the burnout, but
Well,
I'm praying that rule is actually called burnout and I haven't just been saying the wrong thing.
yeah, I believe it is called burnout. Something you do gotta watch, or not watch out for, but something you do gotta notice about decay is that it happens at the end of activation steps. So you will
Yeah.
get your full buffs, nothing will die right away, and you'll go in and swing and hit, and then once you're done, then you'll be taking the wounds. So at least you get your full value out of the regiment before decay hits you.
Yeah.
Um, there are.
It.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. There are other ways for you as a player who has decay to put it onto your opponent's stuff. I believe there was an old build of Spires you were mentioning before where you could just like get a bunch of decay and then like blop it onto an enemy regiment and then they would be running. I know for your Volva has Hela's Crest, what just puts decay 3 on a regiment. And so that's kind of her offensive spell. And if a regiment has to, let's say, march charge to get you and you throw this on, well, once they hit that end of charge step, they're just going to take 3 hits per stand. And I guess it goes away at the end. Yeah, it goes away at the end of the round. So there's that.
Sorry, finish your thought, but I have actually opinions about that spell. That are relevant. So
I will. I'm just pulling it up because I looked at it a while back. Spires has a ton of decay, but it uses buffs. But one of the things you have to be watch out when you're applying decay to enemy regiments is that the regiment that you want to put decay on hasn't activated yet because it's an end of activation step. So if it's already activated, it's not doing anything else for the round. Don't put it on those guys because they're never going to suffer from it because they haven't activated.
And so that's kind of the trouble, in my experience with that spell and getting value out of it, is that if the Valkyries are not engaged, then it's probably like I have something more important to focus on than burning an early turn activation, casting a decay spell with that Volva. And then if the other scenario is if my Valkyries are engaged, they need to get priority to activate their bastion. To become
tanky.
To get to that critical point of resilience that makes them so great. So you don't want to waste time activating the Volva and casting a spell that is maybe going to go off, maybe not. I don't know a way around that. I think it's just a spell that doesn't really I guess there are corner cases where it would make sense, like when you're positioning Valkyries and something gets a little too close and you can pop it off when they're not. I don't know. The way that spellcasting and the timing of that spell works, and because it's tied to the activation, is what makes it. Whereas, like with an ice Jotnar, Jotnar, Utnar, Otnar, somebody's gonna complain about the way I pronounce it no matter what, so I'm just gonna pronounce it like 6 or 7 ways that just piss everybody off. Problem solved.
Perfect.
The Gutnar, he can just throw hail onto anybody anytime, and they have to take the hits, even if they're not super high quality hits. Like there's not a point where it's redundant, and that's generally speaking, like, as a more general criticism that's hugely divergent from what we're supposed to be talking about. The Volva is, a lot of her spells are so timing dependent that I don't want to waste time on them.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's especially when there is even the slightest like
There, you have better options.
a clash always works. Like it's better or it's worse, but it always happens once you're in clash range. So if it's between that or casting a spell and then maybe having things happen that reduce the efficacy of that clash that I really need, why would I?
That is true. She does have better spell options. Looking,
The one to put blessed on another regiment is really good.
oh
if
yeah, oh yeah.
she's in a position to do that.
Put blessed on a mountain Jotnar. That guy's going to town.
Yeah.
Put blessed.
Or blessed on those evasion rolls on your bochos, and that's gonna make
Yeah, you can go.
that's gonna be a feels bad moment for your opponent.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I'm smiling broadly.
Thank goodness
for those of you doing the podcast with me and at home.
God damn it! Stupid freaking bochos, and you just never want to die.
So here's the thing: they're so darn good, and the same thing with the slingers that it's like I want them to nerf shooting because I'm tired of the way that taking double good shooting MSUs limits my list building, especially when it's a quarter of the list for the Nords, almost.
Yeah, it's a good chunk. Like, there's 220 per.
And Wadrun are not. I want to say they're not expensive, and then like.
No, you
my
start
brain
looking at
started
them,
to
they are.
stutter and shut down, and it's like they are expensive, but not nearly as expensive as bochos.
Yeah, what can I say about it? Like, because the meta currently is shooting, and if you have good shooting options, you're doing well, and it shows. Like, and shooting counts from like wizards as well. Like Temperate Sorcerer gets thrown in there. It just affects so much, and it's just like, and also if it's very durable and can stay alive longer, it just keeps going. You're always printing money basically. For decay, a lot of decay. I'm gonna get back on topic. As we go on off topic back to Bochosen.
I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to say anything.
No, that's fine. The listeners can enjoy this part, just us rambling for a bit. Like, we'll get through it. Trust us, I swear. A decay comes up a lot with spires, and mainly in the Ferromancer and Biomancer, you use their Ferromancies and Biomancies to buff units. So the infantry regiments, the brutes, the cavalry, and the monsters with different effects through their Biomancies and Ferromancies, and then they take mutations and masteries and retinue to buff that as well. Like, if you go down Mastery of Flesh to like tier 3, you can cast 2 different like Ferromancies or Biomancies, and you can do 2 of the same one for like tier 2 and stuff like that. So you can start like really popping off with the stuff. One here, not that one. God, I'm gonna find it. A Ferromantic Overdrive. Yeah, here we go. This is kind of like a free Turn the Tide. So if a regiment within 12 inches of character, it can immediately act to make 2 actions of the same type this round, and then suffers Decay 3. Decay 3 if it's an infantry, Decay 4 if it's a brute or cavalry, Decay 6 of the monster. Special rules until the end of the round. The character stands and proceeds the rest of his activations. So yeah, you got to draw your next command card. So that is the regiment, and then if that regiment is within 12 of the character, it suffers the decay value and assorted, but then gets to just do its stuff. I don't know. I want to say used to be good, but now not so much. Because I don't know. Because I guess this was combined with Turn the Tide, so you draw your Ferromancer, who is the Warlord, turn the tide the unit he's in to do stuff for someone else, and then do this one. So,
this is one of those things where like.
But Turn the Tide's gone.
I'll be the first to tell you I'm not smart enough to understand some of the interactions that I was seeing with the Spires. Like, I would have never come up with that on my own. I was just reading through the rules, and I saw that the thing that I was thinking of was to use Biomantic Plague Node, and then just to build to catch as much decay as possible. But it was that was a bad way to build a list. That was definitely a mean list that in my head I had started to misremember until it became good. So just remember, you can't trust your own mind.
Yeah. I re-listen to our podcast and be like, why did I say that? Stupid.
I don't.
Oh, thank goodness.
I don't need that burden.
I try and make these slightly better every time.
No, worse for me.
Yeah. From the Biomancer, you got Unstable Enhancement. This is, I believe, the big one that a lot of people do because it's draw this command card, regiment within 12 of the character, it immediately acts and adds +2 to its march characteristics and +1 to either its clash or volley. Then suffers the same amount of decay 3, 4, and 6, depending if you're infantry, brute, or cav, or monster. I believe this is kind of the big one that you see a lot of, is putting Unstable Enhancement onto stuff, especially like weaker Spires things, so like Force-Grown Drones, or even you can put on bigger stuff too, like Avatara, and like putting Avatar up to like Clash 3, or if they have like if the the Lineage Highborn and they have like superior creations, they're already Clash 3 through the list building, they go up to Clash 4, and then they inspire to rerolling and get that movement 7 to movement 9, like you're doing that long bomb with that accuracy hits, and then you're gonna decay, like there's that combo. And so I feel like people bring a Biomancer just for Unstable Enhancement, just to kind of do a long bomb charge and hit really hard. What's a good combo? And then they'll, take their damage. Yay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess Sorry. No, go ahead.
I don't have anything to say.
I thought I had a point to make there, but the more I thought about it, I didn't feel strong about it. So, decay's a good rule though overall. But sorry, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. If you want to go,
it's yeah, it's probably some of the things that interact with it weirdly, like the vulva stuff that we were talking about, probably needs to get reworked so that there's potentially maybe some more value there somehow, but I think that's changing the spell more than decay itself. Like decay fulfills a very specific function, and it's a good way to balance out other mechanics. So
like if something's a good buff but you want to have it like not be as great of a buff for its cost, just throw decay on it, and then it's kind of let the dice decide of how well it does, because there's been times where I've had decay put on me from a Spires player, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take decay 3, so I'm going to roll 3 dice. And they're like, no, you're going to roll 3 dice per stand, and on a 5 or 6, you're going to take a wound. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I have a regiment of 6, and that's going to be 18 dice I roll, and then I'm going to fail half of them, and I'm going to take 8 wounds, and there goes 2 stands. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that kind of sucked. So,
yeah.
It's... But then there's times where I roll a bunch, like the 18 dice, and I only have 2 fails, and it's like, okay, well, I took 2 wounds, whatever. Like it's kind of hit or miss sometimes, just because of how it rolls. So you could have decay rolls where you're making all your saves and you're doing great and getting all your buffs, or you're throwing it on your opponent and they're failing all their saves, you're doing great, or you have it the other way. I believe Mike, he was either telling me before this cast started or during this, where it was like it's kind of feast or famine if you're trying to get it to hurt someone or try to prevent it from hurting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, there's times when it's done. The dice are shit, or they're ice cream. I don't know. That's part of the joy, I guess, though, is that it helps balance stuff like Burnout because Burnout you're getting like +2 March and +1 Clash, which actually gets Warbred stats, raw stats, underwhelming. Clash 2, 5 attacks, Resolve 3, Defense 3. Like, they're fine.
But you're also paying 210 points for that?
So, yeah, for 210 points, they're
fine.
Not great. Even with Cleave 2 and the Relentless Blows. Relentless Blows, anytime is, like... I never roll fewer ones than when I have Relentless Blows on a unit.
Except
is the bottom line.
But if you have Precision Shot, you'll roll all ones.
Yeah. That actually happened in my last game with Precision Shot. on the them damn Bochosen. I got, and it sucked actually, but I rolled 6 attacks on one round, one volley, and I got 5 precise shots.
Oh my god.
And then the dice, like, God abandoned me. And I did not roll. I lost every supremacy roll after that. My rolls were at, like, my defense rolls were all fucking high.
That's what you get for playing Bochosen.
No.
Yes.
I don't get that. I shouldn't. But back to the Warbred, like, Impact 2 with Clash 2 is garbage. It shouldn't even, like, it's the game's way of insulting you. Like,
yeah.
It's not. Clash 2 Impact hits are they seem nice.
They're not worth it. Let me tell you about Household Knights. They're Clash 2. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not great unless you can get some, like,
you have to buff them.
Is, yeah, even getting it up to Clash 3 makes such a significant difference there.
Yeah, well, you see me whenever I play my Crimson Towers, where I like try and push them to Clash 4 because I need them to hit because all their damage comes from impact attacks.
So yeah, it's Burnout, it really pops them off. Like, Warbred get okay with chant support. They get really good with a good chant Burnout combo. And Decay is what makes them not cost 1,000 points for an MSU. So
also,
thanks, Decay.
You should also be using Burnout the turn you're going to be doing damage. Like, they march their 6, they keep marching their 6 until it's like, okay, I put them on top of my command deck, I draw the command card, I declare Burnout, I get my buff, I charge in, I do all my damage, and I suffer decay. Like, that's the time when you use Burnouts, when you're actually going to be hitting people with them. You don't use it to just be like, you use Burnout every turn just to go up to March 8 and run up the table really fast. Use Burnout when it's that you are now becoming the hammer turn and you're going to hit someone. Yeah. So yeah. I'm good with Decay if you are. Should we get on to our main topic finally? An hour later?
Yeah, because I know people love ratings in this internet age, so I wanted to just quickly score Decay for the people who are listening to help. So I wanted to give Decay as a rule. The official BonkTable tail of the tape is it gets 37 gold stars, 15 trophies, 22 eggs, and a bell.
Why are you doing this to me?
That's you. There you have it, folks.
What?
Objectively, that's the score for Decay. But moving on to the scenarios. Now I'm gonna pay the price for my silly little joke by getting fucking furious.
Oh my god. This. Thank you. All right, scenarios. Conquest, Last Argument of Kings. This is the March 2nd update, and that is that. So I'm kind of going to start going through all this thing. It's 18 pages. The first half of it, and I mean half, I mean like first 3 pages are just kind of like breaking down army lists, war bands, points values, size of battle, all the special rules that are specific for scenario gameplay. And then we're getting into the actual scenarios themselves, where Mike will have a heyday tearing them apart and how he feels about them. So to save Mike agony and to tell him to go get a glass of water, I'm gonna start going through point values, army bands, and such, so our listeners can understand a little more what's going on there. I'm probably gonna do this in more of a key, like kind of like what was it? I guess a bulleted list, and kind of break down, not going through every single detail, because a lot of this is just kind of like how you already play the game. But there's some key facts. So, army lists, it just says to help ensure a fair and balanced game. Army lists are chosen to equal point values. Then it gets into point values. So you just play the same amount of points. So if you're playing a 2,000 point game, your opponent is also playing a 2,000 point game. And then size of battles. They recommend 2,000 point games for their tournaments. Of course, people can play higher or lower. However, they consider games of 1,000 or smaller more in the way of learning games for the rules, just because at that point they're a little too more random, and whoever gets the charge off first is kind of the winner. So it's not like you have that back and forth with larger point games. It's just whoever charges first wins. And when I was playing through my slow grow league last year, that was kind of the case when we were going from like 500 points, 750, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400. When it got to about 1,500, that's when that break was, where it's like we had enough things on the table, we're losing the charge, you could still play and win. And that's just kind of how the game is played, or how the systems work, and it balances itself out better at that 2,000 points. So I would recommend doing your tournaments and such between 1,500 and 2,000. And maybe your TO wants to do a 25,000 point list, or not list, tournament. That's kind of up to them when they do tournament day. So building an army list consists of entries of character stands and regiments, all of which are selected from a single faction's army list, and you can include any number of either in your army subjected to the following rules. So that's to say, if you're picking 100 kingdoms, everything in your army is going to be from 100 kingdoms. If you're picking spires, everything from your army is going to be from spires. You're not going to be grabbing Old Dominion and Nords and mixing and matching the different war bands. So that's why we have factions. So first one here is Warlord. The Warlord is one character stand to be your Warlord, and that is your avatar on the battlefield. So Mike likes to self-impose. I have no idea if he's still here or not, by the way, for the listeners. If he's actually run off to go get water, what he should be doing. This would be Mike's persona that he has on the field of battle. So that's that. And that character that you select as a Warlord is the one who's going to be the supremacy, like getting the supremacy ability. For warbands, each character stand in your army, including the Warlord, must be accompanied by a warband of regiments. You'll normally have a choice of regiments to choose from, but you must always include at least one regiment of the same type, example, infantry, cavalry, or brute, as your character stand. So if you have a mounted noble lord, you have to bring a cavalry regiment that he can join. You can't, and if you have a noble lord on foot and you bring a mounted regiment, the noble lord on foot can't join it because they're not the same type. So infantry has to match infantry, cavalry has to match cavalry. This is between character and regiment. I'm doing a facial motion, but I just realized you can't even see. So them's the beans.
I love everything about that.
Yeah. Also, each regiment is drawn from the regiment selection of the army list. It can also depend on the character stand is chosen for and counts as a mainstay or restricted choice. Each character stand's warband has a regiment allowance of 4. A warband can include as many mainstay choices as your warband allowance, and restricted choices are more limited, as the name suggests. Each warband can only include two restricted choices from all the options presented. This can be 2 of the same regiment or 2 of the different regiment list. Furthermore, 1 mainstay choice for each restricted choice in your warband. Therefore, a warband that includes 2 restricted choices will have at least 2 mainstay choices. Note that a regiment might be a mainstay choice for one character type and a restricted choice for another character type. Check the character's army list entry to be sure. So, to break that section down, basically, each character can have 4 regiments part of their warband before you got to go grab another character if you want to add more. Two of those regiments can be restricted, and if you are bringing 2 regiments that are restricted, they have to have a mainstay to match. So if you bring 1 mainstay regiment and 2 restricted regiments, you can't do that. You have to have a mainstay to match those restricted. You can fill your 4 regiment slots with just mainstays if you wanted to. Some people do that, actually. That's kind of a choice in your army building and your list construction. But you do have to watch out that there's a mainstay for each restricted you have, and a character can fit into one of those regiments in their warband. So they can join the table in one of them. And that's kind of it there as a general, well, not general, but them's the rules in the document. One of the things I like to do when I build my list is that I have an idea for restricted that I want to play with, because that's where all the fun stuff in each of the factions are. And then I grab the character, tool them for that restricted, because I'm usually adding that character to that restricted option unless it doesn't match. Grab that regiment, buff it all up with options, buckle it up with stands, and then I'll grab like militia bowmen or mercenary crossbows or even men at arms to just be the mainstay choice, and then I won't give them anything because it's kind of like the mainstay tax to get the fancy restricted thing. So another one, optional upgrades. Many character stands regiments have additional options that can purchase for them, such as abilities, command models, or even extra stands in the case of regiments. If you purchase any of these upgrades, simply add the point cost to that character stand or regiment for the upgrade was purchased. This is just points, so if you're using the Conquest Army Builder on the internet or on your phone with the app, it just adds it up all for. And then we got organized play additional list building rules. So additional list building rules, I'll break it down a little more. Players must build their armies based on the rules found in Conquest, the last argument of King's Rulebook, and each faction respective army list with the following changes and additions. Army lists cannot contain the same character stand entry more than twice. Character stands that have an option to be on foot, mounted, or being to a different order are still considered to be the same entry. Army lists cannot contain the same regiment entry more than 8 times. So this is the big one. So if you have 2 vulvas and you want to put another vulva in, you can't. You can only have 2 of the same character stand. If you have a Wadroon Predator and then a Wadroon Mounted Predator, and then want to put in a 3rd Wadroon Predator, you can't because the mounted version and the foot version count as the same entry. And then we get into regiments where you can't have more than the 8 of the same thing, so you can't have just like 8 Old Dominion, or more than 8 Old Dominion Legionnaires for like mainstay options, just over and over and over again to fill out a warband. So like if you took 2 Stredioses and then just gave them both 8 or 4 each Legionnaires, and then you took in a Hierodeacon and tried to put a Legionnaire in there, you couldn't do it. And that's just to kind of like prevent spam, basically. Because at that point, if you, like I've filled something with 8 just to see what happens. Like a majority of your points have already been taken up by the 8, and they're all MSUs, and they're just gonna die really fast. There's something that's dedicated to just like killing things. So yeah, it's really just there to prevent spam. Next on our list, we got set up the battlefield. We recommend that you play it on a 6x4. Cool. It does state though, however, if you decide to use a larger force, you would like to play on a much larger, bigger battle, you can agree with your opponent on different battlefield size. Each scenario diagram has a 72-inch by 48-inch battlefield divided by a grid of 12 by 12 squares. This is actually really nice to see where things are and placed on the table, because it's just like if it's in the middle between 2 of the squares, well, you know it's like 6 inches over, so you can easily measure that off. It gets into terrain. Terrain is an important aspect of all this. So in the case where terrain placement conflicts with any rules, example, a terrain piece being placed on an objective zone marker, then the players can call the TO or judge and they can readjust the terrain. Terrain follows all normal rules found in Chapter 10 of the Conquest rulebook with the following changes and additions. So sometimes you'll come up to tournaments and you'll look at a table. I had this happen where terrain was placed and it was within like 7 inches of the board edge where it needs to be like outside of 9. So I just talked to the TO and he just moved it over. Simple as that. So the following changes are no piece of terrain is placed on top of an objective zone marker. No piece of terrain is within 9 inches of another terrain piece. No piece of terrain should have a footprint larger than 9 inches by 6 inches. Smaller pieces of terrain can be grouped together to form a single terrain piece. This combination of terrain pieces should not create a footprint larger than 9 by 6. Example being, a ruined hamlet can be combined with a few pieces of broken walls to create a larger ruined structure. Can only include up to 2 pieces of garrison terrain on each battlefield. I'm going to talk about this for a little bit. This is to prevent people from just like getting into houses and shooting at each other and just like setting up like defensive kill zones all over the table. Most must include at least 2 pieces of terrain with the obscuring rule. This is to help you like absorb shots. So like people with the volley action and shooting shots into you. Must include at least 2 pieces of terrain with the obstructing special rules. This is to just block line of sight. So you'll see people who put the obscuring and obstructing rule on trees, or they'll just have some houses. These are ways to prevent range attacks on the table so that the more melee focused aspects of the game can actually get there. And We keep going down. When the TO sets up terrain pieces, it is important to keep both sides of the table fairly symmetrical to ensure a fair game. The battlefield should contain about 6 pieces of terrain, but no more than 8. Overall, these are fine. Do you wanna talk about some of these, Mike? Do you have any issues with terrain?
Well, now that we're going through the list, one of the issues was I was sure that it was like the minimum, like they recommended 9 pieces of terrain. So
That's War Machine.
Now I'm starting to feel like and nobody corrected me. So why don't people do that when I'm just saying something that's completely wrong? No, other than that, it's pretty straightforward. When you talked about the garrison terrain, I thought it would be pretty funny to do like an urban combat scenario.
Like we could,
but that's not really productive. I think it's a funny idea.
If you bring as many bochos in as you want, I'll bring as many Merc crossbows. We can sit in buildings and keep shooting at each other.
No, I don't. You know what? Maybe one day.
the meme battle report, like the April Fools.
Ugh,
something stupid and awful.
The battle report that hurts you to experience.
Yeah.
Obscuring terrain is so important now that I would say that probably even more than 2 is ideal.
Well, remember,
2
this is
the minimum.
Like least, so this is the minimum requirements. Like they
I'm saying like
put in 4.
Okay, so like they say that you can never give a dog chocolate because if you were like you shouldn't give a dog chocolate, but they can eat a little and it's probably going to be okay, then sometimes you would think it's okay to give them some, and then you would accidentally hurt your dog. So, like, I think it's the same idea here, where they should be, like, describing the minimum, quote-unquote, as being the thing that's actually going to keep me, the shooting factions player, from just blasting you off the map. Because there was that game against Old Dominion where there was no obscuring terrain really to speak of, or barely any.
Oh, are you talking about episode 6 of the battle reports?
No, because it wasn't. It was me against Old Dominion.
Oh, well, the listeners can also check out episode 6 of the battle reports because the exact same thing happened.
Yeah. There was
very little.
They should check that out.
Like line of sight blocking terrain.
So and I was up against Old Dominion and I was able to just like pummel them because there was nothing stopping me. So and I'm sorry that the dog analogy was extremely dark. Dogs are wonderful. You shouldn't give them chocolate.
I love dogs.
That's
why it's really tough for me to kill the Fenris beast pack every time.
I know, and I see anything that's them in the hunting packs every single time.
No, they're chickens.
I don't know if you've noticed. I say, don't kill my dogs. Why are you killing my dogs? Great job, dog killer. Things like that. It's called psychological warfare, and I hope one day to dedicate an episode to it because it's an important part of mastering Conquest.
Remember to psychologically break your opponent so you can win. Jesus.
Make your opponent feel like a dog killer so they feel bad.
Oh God. My I guess gripes about terrain. I'm happy they have all this in here. My thing is that maybe it's the terrain we play upon, maybe it's just how we build we use our regiments, because we usually like to go 3 wide. What allows for those gaps between the 9 inches from terrain pieces, it's just because the terrain cannot be placed on objective zones and markers, it actually limits where that terrain can be to be relevant to the table. And if you follow the rules strictly, it kind of like pushes a lot of that terrain away from the parts of the table where it's going to be relevant. So that's like the middle of the table, because the objective zones are in the middle of the table and you can't put terrain in the objective zone. So it's like, okay, where's it going? But I know for us locally, we've just been putting it like on the edge of the zone. So at least it's in there. It's still being relevant. Like it's still like people are still playing with it. But like if you follow the rules to the letter, you're kind of hindering where you can put stuff because no terrain piece can be within another like 9 inches of another terrain piece, and then on top of that, it can't be within the zone. So like, there's like these couple blocks it can be that are near the middle, and it doesn't. There's too wide of a gap, and that allows just like, okay, I'm just gonna shoot you there, or oh, we're just gonna fight in this area because it's away from the terrain, so we don't have to deal with it.
I really thought that terrain could be a little bit on the objective zone as a treat.
It might have been in the rules section of the Discord, like it might have got changed a little, but base rules it's not allowed. I know we do it just as what I've said before because it allows more interesting
because
tables.
It's punk.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of Conquest punks. But it makes the terrain relevant and also allows more of it to be in the area where the bows are going to be, so it's relevant.
It's I definitely think that's an area where if it hasn't been changed, it should be, because I like. Granted, plopping a house like a little shack right dead center on the objective marker is pretty not great, but I think having stuff dip onto it a little bit definitely like adds to the texture.
Like obstructing terrain, maybe on the edge, that it kind of like breaks up that path and movement. While obscuring terrain, you could just probably slap that in the middle and be fine. People can move through it. They can get you. And also you can, like, if it's obscuring and obstructing, you can just hide behind it on the other side. Just allow it to be for it.
So another idea that it doesn't exist at all in the current scenario pack, but is just, I thought, just a cool idea I thought of literally as we were talking about this, is in future maybe having the objective zone markers have characteristics like their terrain.
Okay.
That might be a way to split the difference between not having that as real estate to place terrain without making the weird corner, like, so let's say I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, the easiest thing to say is that for the purposes of the scenario, this hypothetical terrain characteristic having zone has all the characteristics of a forest, so for practical purposes it's an extra forest type thing, whatever. I think I started to over articulate that, but nonetheless.
Another one we talk about for our next section of rules is zonal terrain. This is a special rule that does not allow line of sight to be drawn through it. Stands that are on a piece of obscuring zonal terrain can draw line of sight to enemy regiments and vice versa. So it's kind of like think about it as a cloud. Like if you're in it, you can see out of it, but also anyone can see you. But if you're on the other side of it, you can't see anyone and no one can see you. Brilliant. Then we get into assigning character stands. So each character stand in the army must join a regiment before the first reinforcement phase begins. So before, you would take a character stand, and when you ruled for the regiments, you would then choose it to join a regiment. However, now you have to pick the regiment that character stand is going to come in with before the game starts. Well, before the first reinforcement roll, so that's basically before the game starts. Reinforcements. This kind of gets into the classic, like, regiments don't know how to play at the start of the game, you got to roll for it. A heroic end is a new one that's actually like really big, and this one is where you have been tabled, so you no longer have any regiments, but you've scored so many points that even if your opponent scores points and the game ends at turn 10, you still have more points than them and you still win. Mike, what do you think about this rule?
It's 50-50. Like, I would like to see scenario packs where maybe it depends on the scenario whether or not that rule exists. The best example of that I have isn't really portable to the setting, but like if you, for instance, like if you have two missions and you're 5 army guys and you have 2 missions, and one is like get the box of ammunition and take it back to base, and the other is get to the satellite uplink and upload the data.
Yeah.
You only need to come home for one of those.
That is true. I don't mind this change, especially because I play 100 Kingdom and like a majority of my stuff has been dying by the end of turn 10. So like,
Well, I have also a really uncommon experience, I think, versus most people, because since I like 2.0 has come out, and after we had our local tournament and I switched to I quit orc moding and started Nord maxing. Um, I have, like, everybody else is like, oh, the Nords are the glass cannon faction and they get tabled and you just have to score as much as possible before you get wiped out. And in all but a couple of my games, like, I usually lose on points, don't get me wrong, but like most of the time I have a
sub work
lot of
models.
stuff, and I've nearly tabled the enemy. So it's like, this, I remember when the heroic end rule was added to the scenarios, it was heralded as a way for Wadrun and Nords to get more wins because they could outscore in the early game and then die, and it wouldn't be that bad. But luckily, this is going to come into the thing that I complain so much about, or maybe I'll just do it right now. The right now the scoring numbers and breakpoints are just not quite there. Like, it's too
all over the place.
well. Some of them it's too easy to make a comeback. Some of them it's too hard. The way that the kill mechanics interact with certain factions make them more or less vulnerable to either scoring well or getting outscored in that respect. Because if a scenario awards points for killing regiments and the Old Dominion person you're playing against is sacrificing most of their units to fuel their dark power for their good pieces, then you're being denied scoring by them just playing their army. And that's something very specifically that happened to me, so of course I'm going to complain about that in particular, but there's no denying it could happen to anyone. I don't know. I've had like so many games. I was gonna try to do this on one of the scenarios, but I'll just get into it now.
Okay.
In general, in terms of the scoring, and then we can look at how it impacts a lot of these on a scenarios by scenario basis, I guess. But and I said it already, so I'm just gonna reiterate it. But there's a lot of the multipliers for holding extra zones and a lot of the kill point frameworks in these scenarios make it too easy, in my opinion, to swing a game in a way that makes it so, like, it's still disadvantageous to the early game scoring.
Yeah, I can
armies.
So, episode 9 of my battle report, I had secured like one of the 12-inch zones early on, got my 2 points, and I secured both 12-inch zones, got 6 points, and I secured the only one of them and got 2 points. It was like 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, and I got to, like, I want to say 18 points to like 4 for my opponent, because he finally killed my warlord for 2 points and then scored a zone for 2 points. But then we still had 4 rounds left where he just scored the next 6 points in the zones for the next 4 turns and just won, and then killed an objective for another 4, and just like got to 32 compared to like my 20 or 22 points by the time the game ended. So it, like, I was doing really well at the beginning, like but it's kind of like, you know, those last 4 rounds he just sat on the objectives and just was like boom, 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 score, while like controlling both of them is of course going to be more advantageous, but getting the bonuses for controlling both pushed him over the edge, because now he was finally scoring it like 1 objective and then 2 objectives in turn 7, 8, 9, 10, while I had been controlling and scoring them earlier, but not as consistently, or either not as consistently or not as hard, like not both of them, just because, you know, we're fighting over everything.
Yeah. It's there's a few scenarios where if you're holding 2 or 3 zones, the scoring gets up to like
it starts going
in excess of 10 points, and that's like you can easily close a gap in 2 or 3 turns, which seems like it's gonna make things more exciting and more dramatic. But like the one where it I think is felt the hardest to me, and otherwise I think it's a good scenario design. But scenario 7 melee. So you get a bonus for.
Hold on, are we skipping the rest of the rules and just going straight to scenarios?
No. I just we'll circle back to it. I just want to use this as an example for what I'm trying to explain here. So like in this scenario, you have scoring zones, and you get extra points for holding additional zones. You also get points for killing. But you can run into a scenario where if you have a point advantage in the early game, you may find yourself having to either leave zones to kill stuff before it can get to you and kill you and get points and then take the zones, or you're hanging out on the zone and
you need to leave it to go kill stuff to prevent your opponent from scoring to win, because that literally happened in our game.
Yeah, or you can't like you have to either overcommit to the zones or overcommit to killing, and then either way you wind up sort of losing on points, or the other player is able to get a big advantage. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a bad player, maybe I'm just fucking this up every time, but I don't know. I'd like to think.
I like to think I'm good. Like
I wouldn't even like to think I'm good. I'd just like to think I'm not that bad.
No, like we got battle reports showing your games. There's just constant improvement over them.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wrap up these rules and then we'll start going through each zone or each scenario individually, because there's some of them that I do like and there's some of them where I'm like, please let's not play this ever. For the next one, we got objective markers and zones, and this is like you need to either score or destroy these to get points. And then it says objective zones are either 6-inch 9s or 12s. You'll see them. I believe there's no 9s in the Last Argument Kings. They're only in, what is it? First Blood. But you'll see a lot of 6s and 12s. And then the big one here is that so there's two big ones. Certain scenarios refer to objective zones as friendly to one player or the other, and friendly zones cannot be seized by the player they are friendly to, as well as objective zones can be seized and interacted with at the beginning of round 2. So scoring starts at round 2, so you want to get a medium on that zone round 2. That's your big goal. Then we get into stands and contesting and scoring. So like light non-monster stands do not count towards seizing objectives. However, stands capable of seizing objectives still need to outnumber any enemy lights in range of the same objective to score. So your light stands count as contesters. Light monsters count as 2 stands for the purpose of seizing, so this is basically the Fallen Divinity only. Medium stands counts as 1 stand for the purpose of scoring. Heavy stands only count as 1. However, monster stands count as 3 for the purpose of scoring. So if you have a medium monster, that's 3 stands. If you have a heavy monster, that's also 3 stands. And then it specifically calls out light monsters as 2. So knowing your stand, how many, like your weight class and how many stands you have to contest and score is a big one. One what does come up is that there will be a medium character in a unit, and it'll have, let's say, it's 3 stands and then the character, so it has 3 contesting stands and 1 scoring stand. And then an enemy regiment will come in with its 3 light stands. They will still contest that medium character because they have 3 contesting stands. But the stands that are lights with that character do not contest the contesting stands. They have to have more mediums than the lights. So watch out for that when you do play games when someone's trying to prevent you from scoring. Or you're trying to prevent someone else from scoring. Yeah. Objective markers. This gets into objective markers. They are represented by brute or cavalry stands. They are size 2, and they are considered enemies on the battlefield depending on the scenario. Some of them are considered friendly, and we'll get into that. They don't do anything, like they can't perform actions or anything. A regiment can march within 1 inch of any objective marker as well as march through it, as long as the regiment does not end up overlapping with it or end up in a legal position at the end of its activation. So you can't land on it, and you need to actually be able to get past it. Certain scenarios refer to objective markers as friendly to one player or another. Friendly objective markers cannot be destroyed or attacked by the player they're friendly to. Friendly objective marker is within an objective zone. So if a friendly objective marker is within an objective zone, that zone is contested and cannot be seized by enemy stands. However, a player would still need to have more stands than the opponents as of the objective zone to seize it. And then we get into destroying objective markers. They can be destroyed at the beginning of round 2. So to damage it, you got to make an attack. Same way you make an attack with everything else. And then we have a bunch of bullet points. So I'll just kind of go through these. Regiments can select an objective marker as a target for a charge or clash action. Stands infect impact attacks on objective markers as normal. Reform withdrawals when only engaged in objective marker do not cause hits or resolve tests. Objectives or regiments can only select an objective marker as a target of a volley action if the marker is within effective range, so that's your half range. Objective markers cannot be targeted by any spell that special rule, draw event, action, or ability before the beginning of round 2. Objective markers can only be targeted by spells that cause hits. Objective markers are not affected by hits or spells that targets resolve. Objective markers have 3 wounds and are defense 3. Objective markers cannot suffer more than 1 wound per volley, action, spell, draw event, special rule, or any other ability. Objective marker cannot suffer more than 1 wound per clash or charge action from a light or medium regiment. Objective markers cannot suffer more than 2 wounds per clash or charge action from heavy regiments. Objective markers do not have resolve. Objective markers' defense rolls are rolled by the non-active player. Once objective marker loses all its wounds, it is removed from play. Furthermore, objective markers' wounds are tracked separately per each player. So this means that an objective marker is destroyed only when the amount of wounds caused by the same player is enough to destroy the objective. So I'm going to break this down for you in an easier way. Lights and mediums can only cause 1 wound per damaging action. So that's a volley, clash, impact attack to an objective marker. Heavies, however, can deal 2 wounds per clash or impact. It specifically states volley actions, no matter the size, only do 1. So if you have a heavy who's doing a volley action to objective, it still only does 1. However, heavy, like let's say Crimson Tower or Mountain Jotnars, they can do 2 damage on the charge, and they can do 2 damage on the clash, and they could just kill it. Cool. The objective only has 3 health. It's tracked separately, so if I do 2 damage to an objective, and then my opponent does 1 damage to the objective, my opponent doesn't kill it and score the points. He just has to track how much damage they do to it separately. Another one is, there's another one in here. I did a heavy, I did that. Oh, yes, so defense rolls. Because the objective is defense 3, the inactive player, so your opponent, if you're the one making attacks into the objective, would roll the defense rolls for it, and it's defense 3. So it's still affected by brutal impact, cleave, armor pierce, stuff like that. So you can reduce the defense roll to like 0 if you have a high enough one, and kill it. Then we get into the last 2 bits, regiments and reinforcement. Regiments are not deployed at the start of the game. They're held to one side and arrive later in battle. That's same as the core rules. Secondary objectives. So if you have those, well, I guess what is it? The objective cards would come into the support packs for each faction. The scenarios contained in the scenario pack are balanced. So these scenarios are balanced without them. However, you should feel free to include them as an additional layer of objective scoring. A lot of people don't usually play with them. They're just focusing on the scenarios. And now we're finally into the first scenario. So, Mike, I've talked a lot. Divide and Conquer. Tell me about it. What's going on? How's it scoring? And we're going to discuss this one.
Yeah. So, I mean, this one is tough for elite costed armies, generally speaking. Just because if you've got... This is one where if you've got lights that can get on the spot really early, you can potentially get a lot of scoring early game. The more, if you can manage to get 3,
so to give you
4, then it can snowball really fast. Sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah, so to give the listeners an idea of what kind of the scenario looks like, you're more than welcome to open this up and look at the scenario pack on Paramount's
I just
website.
assumed you were looking at it.
I'll throw a link in like the show notes or whatever for people. This scenario is played regular deployment, so you are 4 feet apart from your opponent. 1 foot in and 1 foot up each side from you and your opponent is a 6-inch zone, and then 2 feet up and 2 feet in from you and opponent is another 6-inch zone. So that means there are 6 inch zones on the table, and then 1 foot up and 4 feet, or sorry, 3 feet over. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 feet over for each you and your opponent is an objective marker that you control. So because the scenarios are they're 6-inch zones, so that means they're gonna be 3 inches towards you, and they're 12 inches away. That means you basically just have to have a March value of 9 with a medium to get into those close zones on your side. And as Mike said, I believe you have to score 3 of them to get the bonus. Players get an additional 2 VPs if they're seizing 3 or more. So,
or 4 VPs if they're seizing 4 or more objective zones. Now, the or more in both of those makes it sound like they stack too.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing about victory points with these scenarios. So, to break down the victory points for this one is players gain 3 VPs for every enemy objective marker they've destroyed. So there's only one objective marker, and it's on the other side of the table from you. So it's going to take a while to get to that. They score 2 VPs for each objective zone they're scoring. They get an additional 2 VPs if they're seizing 3 or more. And they get additional 4 VPs if they're seizing 4 or more. And then you get 2 VPs for killing the enemy warlord. So I guess you would get 2 per zone. So if you're controlling 4 zones, you would get 2, 4, 6, 8. Then you get an additional 2 for controlling 3 or more. So you go to 10. And then you would gain additional 4 for controlling all 4 of those, so you go to 14. Is that how you would read it?
Yeah, that's my read on it.
God damn it.
Yeah, so it's like it kills me because I see you and your
million men, my peasants.
Yeah. And not only that, but you've got a lot of great options for character units that can score and hang out in the light. So it's pretty easy for, like, this is a scenario where 100 Kingdoms it sells because you have a lot of opportunities to get that early game scoring in place. Because, like, the 12-inch one,
it's too far back for your opponent to interact with you until much later in the game. So it really sets up for you trying to control those 2 middle zones to score those additional VPs as a 100 Kingdoms player, or as a player who can get medium things onto the table quickly. So like a Hellfire Drake would love to sit in one of those 6-inch zones and just shoot all game because it's a medium.
And not only that, yeah, and you're tipped into it at 9 inches, so it's something that even like almost any unit can make.
I think
double.
Nothing is less than speed 5, so every unit could double march into these zones.
So that's another area where it's like so I was pissing and moaning like an angry, feisty little baby earlier.
As you are,
as one does, yeah.
As one does.
About how the impact of being able to, like, having high mobility mediums to put on those objectives is mitigated, and this is a perfect example because 2 of the spots that you're going to get, anyone could take them by the time that it's relevant. So then you've got the 2 that you're actually going to put your guys in, like, that you need a fast guy to get, but now you're putting a potentially fairly fragile unit into harm's way. Which I mean I understand is by design probably, but like it lets you entrench yourself as well in the back line.
So something I've done for this scenario is that I've run my medium character in the lights up to start scoring those zones. I score them. I bring on my mediums where the medium character will seek to escort into the mediums, run up behind the lights, and then the lights will run like forward, or I'll even keep the medium characters in there for some reason and run the characters forward and have the mediums in the back scoring those back zones while the mediums and those lights will then be scoring the forward zones.
Yeah.
And then that's how I score a ton of points right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then they die. It's like, oh boy. But I've I'm layering scoring by just being like, okay, these mediums will score these ones, and then the mediums that are coming on this turn will then score the back ones, and then as those mediums run up to replace the ones who are dead up front, the heavies will come on and score the back runs, and then they'll move up to score the front ones, and then maybe I'll have something behind still that still can move around to score them still. Yeah. Maybe like I'll be looking at that. You kind of layer your advance through those 6-inch zones on the sides, then be in the middle to like keep scoring to eventually hopefully get all 4 zones and score those 14 points. It's very much controlling. It's about controlling your back zones as well as the middle ones. And if you ever break through and get into your opponent's back zone, you're probably in a really good spot.
Yeah.
Terrain on this table is a little tough though, just because there's a bunch of 6-inch zones all over the place, so it kind of forces terrain to be in a weird spot to not be in zones as is decided by the rules, but also far enough away from each other and still not be in the zone. So I find with this scenario and how current terrain rules are written for it, terrain doesn't really have a good spot. Like, it gets into a very, I want to say, like, samey table every time you come to play Divide and Conquer because of that.
Yeah, it becomes a map where it's really defined by what you're slogging through to get between each objective zone, ultimately. One notable fond memory I have of playing this scenario is when there was just a big obstructing terrain piece directly between the 2 objective zone markers.
Oh, I do remember this one.
So there was just no point.
Yeah.
There was effectively no objective zone markers that game.
Yeah, yes, I do remember watching, like, not watching it, but I remember you guys going to play on that. And I was like, oh god. Yeah, because there's no way to get to them, so let's just took them off the table. Should we rate these? I know I'm throwing this at you, but I know you love rating stuff. There's 12 scenarios. Should we rate them 1 through 12, and number 1 being we think is the best scenario, while 12 is the worst?
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to keep that straight. I feel like it's going to be a pretty impressionistic list until and then we'll have to go back afterwards and assemble what the actual list is. But I'm all for it.
We can give like a general where it's like good, neutral, bad.
No, I want to split the difference. I want to say what we think the number is out of 12, and then we'll go back and see if we actually made a spread of 12 or if a bunch of them were in the same spot.
Okay.
That's amusing to me.
That'll be post-edit.
Yeah. So if we're rating 12 scenarios, rating them 1 to 12, scenario 1 being the number 1 scenario, and scenario 12 being the worst scenario.
Yeah.
I'm going to put scenario 1, Divide and Conquer, at a 7.
At a 7. Okay, so I have a piece of paper here. I'm just going to go 1 equals 7. Okay.
Because I need to leave a lot of room for the other kind of deployment maps to get rated low.
we have Hammer and Anvil still to do, so yeah, there's that. I would follow that simply because I like it. I like how it is and how it plays as my faction. I've heard you talk about the other side. My problem is that terrain does not affect this scenario very well because there's too many scenario elements what disallow terrain to be useful due to their position. And I want terrain to be effective, and it's one of the reasons why I know us locally we put terrain in the zones to not feel the hindrance, and if the terrain is in the zone, it's allowed for you to interact with it. So it's not like a building over the 6 inches, it's a forest, it's a cloud, it's a hill, like it's something like, or even a water feature. Like, it's something to make the zone itself still accessible, but something to think about when you're actually going into it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, scenario 2, Last Stand. Oh my god. This one is a Hammer and Anvil deployment. So that means you are deploying 6 feet across from your opponent, 2 feet up both sides. So from the player 1 side, so 2 feet over, 1 foot from the top, there's an objective zone with neutral. 2 feet from the top, still 2 feet over, is another objective zone when it's neutral. And then 3 feet down, 1 foot from the bottom, and 2 feet across from the player 1 reinforcement line is a 12-inch zone. And then you have that same thing mirrored onto the other side. So, well, kind of like cross mirrored. So at the top, 1 foot. So from player 2's deployment, 2 feet over, 1 foot from the top is a 12-inch zone. And then, it's the 2 objectives going down. Same thing. This one, I'm going to go over through the victory conditions for everyone, and then we'll discuss it. Also, each of these games end after the round 10 that's stated in the game length, and the person who has the most points is the winner. So, for victory points, players gain 3 points for every objective marker they have destroyed. That is closer to the enemy's player's edge of the table during the round. Players gain 2 VPs for every objective marker they have destroyed that's closer to their own table. These objectives can only be allocated runes by the player whose table edge is closer from the 5th round. So this changes up that round 2 you can kill objectives. Players gain 2 BPs for each objective zone they are seizing. Players gain 4 VPs if they're seizing 2 objective zones. Players gain 2 VPs if they are slaying the warlord. Alright. Mike, go.
I mean, it's a bad deployment, but I feel like this map is the way that they intended objective markers to work. I like that there's... So you get something for the ones that are close to you, because the ones... the scenarios where there are objective markers that are aligned to you and you can't do anything with are annoying. There, I said it.
You want to get them out of the way. I want my points. I want them gone so I can put stuff there.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, like, you can choose to not deal with them or deal with them, and there are reasons and incentives to go one way or the other. And then you got some little zones that you can cap. But and overall, it's I would say out of all the Hammer and Anvil scenario or deployment type maps, this is probably one of the stronger ones.
I would agree with that. I would also say, because your friendly objective zones can't be hit by turn 5, your heavies that are usually coming on turn 3, then marching up the table, have a target for turn 5. Also, with the Hammer and Anvil style deployment, a majority of your list is on the table by the time you're actually fighting with your opponent, and also up there. I found a majority of your army is either on the table and about to fight your opponent when you finally hit that middle point in the middle of the table. So there usually is a big brawl, and then you just kind of have to push through and get to those, either that zone or the objectives. I found for this one, I'm mainly aiming for the objectives, the objective zone, so controlling both of those 12-inch zones to score points, and then I'm just trying to kill my opponent's warlord, because at that, I don't have something that far back by my own objectives to the closer neutral objectives to score them at turn 5, and spend a couple turns killing them, because my opponent is now in my face, and if I'm spending that time killing them to get those points, my opponent's right there, and if I kill it and then they charge me, or they get a charge off because they just pull up beside the objective, and I'm spending time fighting this thing, it's not that great. And so I usually tend to just run by them, secure the 2 zones because they're consistent, and then just fight my opponent. Terrain on this table is kind of weird, because the area that you want to fight over is 2 feet basically, and the big one is that line right down the middle.
Yeah, this one's tough because
all the scenario elements, once again, push you're probably going to hear this from me over and over again, that because of how the terrain rules are written, I feel like terrain is pushed away from scenario, while I rather have it interact more with scenario. And you can kind of see in the battle reports that I have, the times where we throw terrain into scenarios so that they're more relevant, because that's the thing we're fighting over. So put the terrain by it, closer, and we try and keep a 9-inch gap between stuff, but we also make it relevant so that it's not just out of the way and not being affected by anything.
Yeah. It also seems to, in this one, is especially shift the terrain to, but like between your deployment zone and the objectives, which is sort of,
It just
who cares? Either it slows you down or something, or it just doesn't do anything. Because like,
yeah, because you're not that far back fighting over anything. Like if there's terrain between my reinforcement zone and the objective zone that I want to score, I'm going to position when my regiments come onto the table, I'm either going to have them too wide, however long deep, or I'm going to just run around it. Like I'm going to very easily find a way around it, and it's just like a small hindrance that I truthfully don't care about too much.
yeah, exactly. It would create a lot of like score rule casing that would probably make the scenario very complex, but I think those middle objective markers, if you move those back to the like 12 inches deep,
Like the
on each side.
so not the zones, but the markers in the middle for each player.
Yeah, exactly.
What if you move them back like 6 inches?
That would be pretty good too. Like that wouldn't be bad either. But so what I'm thinking though is if you go back the full 12 inches and then adjust the scoring for them accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got a place where there's like an area between one objective marker and the objective zone where there's like a space where you can have terrain that's going to have a meaningful interplay with how the battlefield is supposed to work.
Yeah. Like one of my things about having stuff on that 1 foot line is that it usually, if it's that far back, it very rarely gets interacted with, just because it's too far away to touch it. Like basically,
Well,
like, I find a lot of scenarios that have like something like a foot off the reinforcement line for like either a zone or an ejective marker, especially ejective marker. Like my opponent is never gonna get it.
So okay, yeah, that's largely a fair point. So, but what I'll counter with is if we eliminated the players gain an additional 4 VPs if they're seizing 2 objective zones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like take that scoring out of the scenario, and now you get a big bonus for going deep to kill that back objective marker. I feel like there might be more of an inclination for people to go for it.
So if they, yeah, like, yeah, I can agree with that because like even from the scenario 1 where you get like 14 points in a turn, does the game
the multipliers are supposed to be comebacks, I think, but they let you come back a little too hard,
or they let you like win harder?
Yeah, that's the other. Because if you are already winning, then going on there and doubling for objective zones just ensures you're going to get the little resin guy when they calculate scores during the slow grow league.
Yeah, that's why you're here, is to get the model for like the gargoyle.
Exactly.
Should we bother our Vanguard if he has that kit? See which one of us could fight over the gargoyle.
I want yes.
This isn't gonna be a fought in a game. This is just gonna be on the street outside.
Yeah. I like my odds there better.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm just bad at Conquest. It's not that I'm good at fighting. It's just
that's how we're gonna settle it. Just in the parking lot.
Yeah, I'll take my chances there. It's if I'm gonna bet on myself in one area or another.
Just a backyard brawl. Yeah, like I actually kind of think the additional VPs just being removed altogether would probably be nice for like every scenario. And yeah, I kind of do agree with you. Like killing the ejector markers should be those big bumps, because right now I don't focus on the ejector markers unless it's very convenient or I have nothing else in the area to kill.
No, it's the way that the zone scoring works is like, so there's generally like going to be two. Like this is a rare one because there's 4 objective markers that you can score off, hypothetically.
Yeah,
but like, they're worth between 2 and 3 points, so they're almost not worth the effort versus just like getting kills and scoring your zone or trying to get on both zones and super scoring. Like
Well, the problem is the only points you score from kills is the enemy warlord, so it's all about the zone, sniping out that warlord, and then it's just fighting to keep people away from the objectives and the zones and holding on to your opponent's zone.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this devolves into, and that's how I've won this before, is that I've literally just held my zone, punched my opponent out of his zone, and just like keep killing his stuff to keep it away from those two zones.
Yeah.
Okay. Last Stand. What do you rate it? 1 through 12. 7's been taken.
I'm gonna put that. It's a safe one, but actually at a 6.
Oh, okay. I was gonna go with an 8.
I in terms of these type, like there are worse this deployment scenarios that I'd prefer the bottom spots for. So this one is solidly okay for what it is. It's not my top choice, but in terms of the side deployment scenarios, you could do a lot worse.
Okay. Let's go down to scenario 3, Breakout. This is, I believe, the song from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4. Like, breakout, breakout. Yeah. Have you watched JoJo's? Should we do JoJo memes?
I haven't personally watched it, but I know people are very fond of it.
No, you should enjoy yourself. I think that's the level of self-loathing where you just like you're dying inside to watch JoJo's.
That does. I mean, self-loathing. You've already piqued my interest, so.
There we go. You do it for the memes.
But speaking of self-loathing, Breakout.
This is a bit of a self-loather. So, deployment is regular deployment. So there's 4 feet between you and your opponent. There is a 12-inch zone. So all the objective zones and all the objective markers are on the 24-inch line. So right in the middle. There is a 12-inch zone 1 foot from the left side, and then a player 1 objective and a player 2 objective on each side of it. And then there's a 12-inch zone 3 feet in, 2 feet up, that has a player 1 and player 2 objective on either side of it. And then there's another one 2 feet up, 1 foot from the right side, that has a player 1 and a player 2 objective. So basically everything is right along the middle. The player 1 or the player 1 reinforcement stuff is the A objectives, what are on the left side of each zone, while the player 2 objectives are on the right side of each zone, if you're looking at it on the picture. So for victory points, players gain 3 VPs for each enemy objective marker that have been destroyed during the round. They gain 3 VPs for each objective zone they are seizing. They gain an additional 2 VPs for seizing 2 objective zones, and they gain 2 VPs for killing the warlord. Now, you cannot score a zone, this is a big one, until your opponent's objective is destroyed. So you need to, if you want to score that zone, you need to find a way to kill your opponent's objective, and then keep guys on there and push everyone else off, and you score the zone.
Yeah.
I don't mind this one too much, because a lot of people put terrain between the A and B's of each zone, and then kind of stuff around them. I know for us, we've thrown stuff into each zone just to like add a little bit more. I haven't played this one as much as I want. I think you've played it more, and I've seen it played between other players or meta more. What do you think about it? Have you played this? First question.
Yeah, I've
How'd that go?
Not great for me, because I run paper armies. Like, this is a scenario that really, really is easy for defensive armies to get,
Just
if
say
they
it's
can
Dwayne.
get a foothold. Dweg especially, but I mean some other defensive army that I'm not thinking of could probably also leverage this advantage as well. But if you can blow up your the zone, like the marker that you need to seize the zone, and then get on the zone and hold it, then you can keep you can keep your opponent from killing their marker and starting to score pretty effectively, and that'll keep the zone locked up for you, which is all well and good.
And also, if your opponent ever knocks you off, they have to kill your marker to even score it.
Yeah, so you've got time to throw something in there again, But in a lot of cases, if you're the inverse of that, and the disadvantage that less defensive armies have is that they can get on the point, destroy their marker, get bullied off of it, and then just Pez dispenser regiments into it until you've got nothing left.
Yeah.
Which I've done.
You've
plenty
become
of
the
times.
Pez dispenser.
Yeah. And I just imagined a Pez dispenser with my own head, like the big Charlie Brown head Pez dispenser type thing. Just
Is it
disgusting, just hideous.
Is it just shooting up militia? Just like
Yeah,
90-point militia to just run in and die over and over again?
exactly. But yeah, so that's the thing. Like it's on the other hand, well, no, this is a tough one for even the early game scorers, because the early game scorers are all contingent on being able to sit on the point when turn 2 is over.
Mm-hmm.
So they can get that first scoring. But with this one, like, you can't probably kill the objective quickly enough to take advantage of that early scoring either.
Yeah, because it's gonna take you 3, like, from run regiment 3 like turns, or you're committing 3 other regiments to kill it.
Yeah,
I think the scenario benefits heavy regiments more, simply because they do more damage, especially brutes and cavalry and monsters who have those impact attacks to get damage in, so they can just wipe it out in one activation, and then they can fight. So I really see heavier, either tankier factions or heavy focused lists that are going to be doing well on Breakout compared to more of a, let's say, a combined arms or generalist army that would be playing this instead.
Yeah, if you can, well, that's the thing. If you can get 3 heavies into a list, if you knew that you were playing the scenario and you were tailoring to it, you could get skew into heavies, then, like, it wouldn't even matter if you were giving up, a turn or 2 of scoring, because you could come in and just bully them off the point, one activation, the marker, and then just be on your way.
Well, let's look at this. So, turn 1, like, the other thing you gotta remember, pardon me as I burp all over the place, is that all this stuff is right in the middle. So, no one is getting to this turn 1, because they're all gonna run 11. It's 24 inches away, so now there's 13 inches away, so they're gonna run again. So that's turn 2. Turn 3, the heavies are starting to come on the table, and they're gonna start moving up. And turn 3 is when those lights are first gonna be, like, the melee lights, maybe even the range lights, if they're lucky on turn 2, are going to be interacting with the objectives. And then so now they start fighting out turn 3. Turn 4 happens. If the heavies are either A, fast enough, or B, lucky enough, or whatever, they're going to start getting into those zones to start threatening those objectives. The other player is going to put some damage on them and maybe kill them, and then at that point all the heavies are going to start hitting them and killing them, and then start going to town in these zones. So yeah, maybe you do score the objectives, maybe you don't, depending on when the heavies get there and start pushing you off and killing you. And then they have their lights start working on your objectives to start breaking and scoring them as their heavies start killing everything that's in there. Mm-hmm. This scenario seems to be focused more on heavy lists or really tanky factions. So become a turtle, break out.
Yeah. So for that reason, I give it 11.
Oh, whoa! You do not like this one. All right, so 11 you are. Let's go to the scenario for I'll go fuck yourself, Echelon. Hate this fucking scenario. Okay, Echelon. God damn it, I hate it so much. So this one is played regular deployment. There's 4 feet apart from you. You have this is also asymmetrical, like diagonally. So from your deployment, 2 feet over from the side and 1 foot up is a 12-inch zone for each player. And then for an objective marker, 18 inches up and 2 feet over from the other side. So if, let's say, from the right, so 2 feet over from the right and 1 foot up would be your 12-inch zone. And then 18 inches up and 2 feet over from the left would be a neutral objective. and then 6 inches up and 1 foot from the left would be a friendly objective. And this is mirrored the exact same way, diagonally mirrored for your opponent. I am sick of this. I played this a bunch and I just do not like it. For victory points, and I guess I'll talk more about this one. You get 3 BPs for every objective marker that you've destroyed during the round. You get an additional 3 BPs if they have destroyed 2 or more objective zone markers during the same round. So if you kill 2 objectives, you'll get another 3 in the same round. That's kind of tough. You get 2 VPs for every zone you're seizing, and you'll gain an additional 2 VPs if you're seizing 2 or more zones. And then you get 2 points for killing the enemy with it. Okay, so this is what I hate about this. The objective zones are a foot up from the edge there, from your reinforcement, so you are getting onto that one very quickly, and you're going to be scoring it pretty quick, and even then, if you have a medium character and, let's say, a light range unit, they can just sit on the edge of that 12-inch zone and just keep scoring it while still affecting the rest of the battlefield. That's not terrible or bad or anything. It starts getting onto these objectives. The friendly objectives of A and B only being 6 inches off your table edge. Like, your opponent's never getting there anytime soon. And to score more, to get the bonus of scoring points off objectives, you have to kill 2 objectives at once. So you can pretty easily kill the 18-inch neutral objective up the table. But your opponent's 18 inches, they're coming that way because across from that objective is your opponent's zone that you want to get into to score. So that one's going to be a fight to control, and maybe you'll push them back and you can take that objective, but you're probably not lining it all up on the same turn to get that bonuses. So I find that victory point condition kind of a waste, as well as it is 1 foot, 2 foot, 3.5 feet away for you from your edge of the table to your opponent's objective, what you're probably not getting to. Like, kind of ever. Like, whenever I played this scenario, no one has ever gotten close to that objective. This scenario mainly focuses around that 2 feet, kind of like, I guess that square in the middle between the 2 objective zones and the 2 objective markers. And it's if you can kill those objective markers and you can score your zone and either contest your opponents, you'll win, kind of thing.
I will say I did in a game against the Spires have an Abomination take my home objective.
Oh, thank goodness it can move 20 inches.
Yeah, so it's fun to circle back and close the loop on that.
Yeah, 2 hours later, we did it, boys. Spires Abomination. This all right, Abomination players from Spires. This scenario is meant for you.
Yeah.
One thing I have to give it props for is that it is wide enough with each of its zones and objective placement that you can very easily fit a bunch of terrain into the middle and into the spots where fights are going to be happening. That I do like about it.
Yeah.
My issue is that scoring on this thing is nonsense, and it's very difficult because things are too far away from where they need to be. If the objective zones were moved 6 inches up and were across from the 18 inches up, so if they're 18 inches up from your table edge, and then let's say the friendly objectives were a foot up, I could see that being more reasonable. But like right now, everything is too far away on that diagonal from each other to be relevant to each other, and it's too spread out for you to either get to stuff or focus things on things. And if you really want to get those back objectives, as Mike said, you need to get an Abomination into there. So like something incredibly quick. Yeah. But even then, I find the middle a little too spread out. Mm-hmm. So scrunch her up a bit, get some fights in the middle, have that match, and like yeah. I've dealt my plague of grapes. What do you guys say about this freaking scenario?
Not much. It's fine. It's the pretty much my complaints with it echo yours. I just find it a little unengaging. So 3 objective zones is too many. 2 is not enough.
So we
It's
need
really
one.
I think you need 3 to 4 is probably the sweet spot. In my opinion, anyway. But otherwise, I mean, in theory, I would find this map pretty good, or this scenario, but it doesn't excite me especially. It's a solidly. I'm absolutely perfectly whelmed by this scenario.
I would give it a 10 and move on. What do you want to give it?
I suppose I would put it at a 5.
5.
Actually, yeah.
Jesus, I'm disappointed in you.
Well, bound to happen.
Okay. Scenario 5, Forlorn Hope.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Scenario 5, Forlorn Hope. So, Forlorn Hope, I feel like is my echelon.
Oh, okay. Then you can talk about this one.
Yeah. So it's got essentially the map is it's a 6x4. It's the normal 4-foot across deployment. On each side, you've got 2 objective zones at 12 inches from the deployment line, and then 24 inches from the side. So, in player 2's reinforcement zone, the left objective zone is 6 inches, and the right objective zone is 12 inches. And then on player 1's reinforcement line and side, it's reversed. In the middle, there's 2 neutral objective markers, and that's essentially the layout. There's also a clause in this map that you don't see in every map or too many other scenarios. I use map and scenario interchangeably because
It's like the same thing for what we're looking at.
so there's essentially anywhere up from 12 inches, like the reinforcement zone that you can potentially have max is 12 inches up from your reinforcement line on your table edge, and then from 12 inches up there's a 2-foot wide no reinforcement sort of no man's land that makes up the middle of the map. This never comes up,
No.
but it's there, and that's interesting at the very least. Beyond that, so in terms of the scoring, you get 3 victory points for every enemy objective marker that you've destroyed during the round. So maximum of 6 VP if you manage to kill both of those. You get 2 victory points for each objective zone that you're seizing. You get an additional 4 victory points if you're seizing 3 or more objective zones. You get 2 victory points if you slain the enemy warlord. You get 2 victory points for every character stand that was destroyed during the round, and then you gain 2 victory points for every enemy regiment that has been destroyed during the round.
This one is very killy. Like,
yeah,
points go everywhere very quickly.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of points for killing, especially, and given that if you kill your warlord character and the regiment that they're in, you're gonna score big time.
6.
6. So this one is actually, I don't hate this one so much. It's a little more balanced in terms of the scoring than a lot of the other multi-zone ones. I do think it's, I don't know. I would say if I was redesigning this, I would just make all the zones 6 inches and call it a day.
If it was 6 inches, call it a day, I would move all the zones up probably 6 inches, like closer to the middle, and maybe out 6 inches, like depending on how I felt. Like I would do playtesting and design where I would put them all to 6s, and then I would move them all 6 inches forward, and then I would try that, and then I'd move them all 6 inches to the right and left, so they're further apart from the middle.
Yeah.
And then try that and see what went on. Like that would be my idea. But for my, like, I know we've actually, there's a battle report. I think it is what would I say? I believe it's number 7. I think it's episode 7 of the battle report if you want to see Mike and I play a game again, like on this scenario with it. As a 100 Kingdoms player who is running an infantry list and having mediums inside of lights, you get onto those scenario elements very quickly, and you can focus fire your objective very quickly because of how close it is to your scenario elements. So you can try and like edge your way into effective range so that your range units can just kill it, or your light melee units can just get in there really quick and just kill it off. It's very central focused, and you and your opponent should be looking to get into those zones with your scoring units fast and keeping them under control. And then you should be looking to kill the objective closest to you as quickly as possible. And then you should be looking at as killing much as possible comes anywhere near those zones and having something in the back that can score them while basically just killing everything. Like it I feel early on it's a very scenario focused scenario, but as the game goes on and as you move regiments closer to that middle, it causes basically just to see who can win on kill points.
Yeah.
Because I think you need 3 or more. Yeah, 3 or more to get the 4 points. So you have to get to the other side. But if you've gotten to the other side, you've basically killed off your opponent at that point, and the rich get richer happen.
Yeah.
Training on this isn't bad because it's left that middle area open in the map just so you can just like slap a bunch of terrain down to like separate yourselves more. And so that allows it to be relevant for the scenario. So I actually like this one a lot too. Yeah. I would put it up to maybe number 3 or 4. I don't know if this would be number 1. Maybe I would actually do this as number 1. What do you think?
I mean, I'm not gonna put you to death for that. Probably it's number 4.
You're gonna do a 4?
For me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've written us down for 4.
Well, I didn't realize I was speaking for both of us. I was just giving my own.
Well, that basically your own number, because I'm not going to number these things because I'm too lazy to do that. So you numbering them is what our rank is going to be, and I'm just going to riddle them off at the end in order.
Godspeed.
Should we go on scenario 6 now?
Yes.
Off balance. I literally just played this. Episode 9 of the Bow Reports. I literally just played this.
So there are 2 12-inch zones. One is 12 inches in from the left side of the table if you're looking at the diagram of the scenario, and it's dead center of the map, so it's 24 inches in from the long edge. And then you've got a second objective zone, and this one is 24 inches. This one is on the right side of the map, and it's 24 inches deep, both coming in from both sides. And then you've got 2 objective markers at on the left side of the map that are 30 inches in from the sides of the map and 12 inches in from the deployment edge and long side. And then you've got a second set of objective markers that are coming in 6 inches from the deployment side and 12 inches from the side of the map.
Okay.
So that's a really confusing description for a really weird map layout, so I apologize for that.
While you're driving, just flip on your phone, type in the Parabellum website, click through all the links to get to the scenario packet, scroll down to page 12, have a quick look, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. No, please don't do that. Oh my God. Please do not do that.
Yeah.
If you're gonna check out the scenario document, either do that before or after you're done driving, or if you're just listening to this on the bus.
Have a trusted friend who's in the car with you describe the scenario to you.
Yeah, pause the podcast and tell them to describe it to you better.
Pull over to the side of the road. Put your hazard lights on.
Yeah, get out your pylons and cones so that you can section off your vehicle.
Yeah, have a look at the scenario. But in terms of the victory points, so you get 4 victory points for every enemy objective. Oh, that's the other thing, is so the markers that are on the side of your map belong to you, and the ones on the other side are enemies to you. So you gain 4 VPs for every enemy objective marker that you've destroyed during the round. You get 2 VPs for each objective zone that they're seizing. You get an additional 2 victory points if they're seizing 2 objective zones, and then you get 2 victory points if you slain the enemy warlord. And it's 10 rounds. Whoever scores the most wins. Yeah. Hate it. This is number 12 for me by Silver Bullet. Yeah, I think this is a really bad one. But
all right.
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. You want my opinions as I played it? I believe, or my opinion is that the friendly objectives are basically irrelevant until the very end of the game. All the fighting is over those 2 12-inch zones that are off balance, name of the scenario. Yeah. And that is the only thing relevant in this entire thing. So you're just basically fighting over 2 circles, and if you can maybe sneak something over to those objectives, like the two objectives between those 2 scenario zones, you're basically not getting, and the only time you're getting them is if you've wiped out everything else, so the rich get richer. The one that's 6 inches from the deployment edge, you're only getting if you've, in my instance, I killed a bunch of stuff and got there and killed it, or you're, sneaking something way down there to kill it. I do find, something I do have to give the scenario props for is that because everything is far enough away from each other, terrain, you can place a lot of terrain in a lot of different spots, so it's very susceptible for terrain to be relevant to it. However, it just ends up being just fight over the 2 scenarios or the 2 zones, and what happens at the end is someone ends up scoring both and just takes a lead and wins.
Yeah.
I find these 2 zones get locked down by each opponent very quickly, and you don't score enough early on, and then you're pushed off, and you just get I guess you get both zones scored and the additional points, and they just carry it to victory, and that's it. I would not focus on the objectives at all. I would literally just focus everything on the zone, and that's it, and that's kind of not the greatest.
Yeah.
Maybe changing A and B into zones, or maybe changing all of them to zones. Fuck it, or getting rid of those 2 6-inch. I hate stuff that's 6 inches off the deployment because I'm literally never getting there, and if I am, it's the very end of the game, and I've sent something off to do something weird that maybe could have been better focused on the middle of the table where it'd been more relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
I probably wouldn't put it down to a 12, but I agree with you that it's not that great.
Yeah, no, that's firmly where I personally am putting it, but I don't think it's, I think out of the pack, it's just 2 12-inch zones, at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, it's the least developed.
Yeah.
And welcome back to another day of BonkTable podcasting. If you didn't notice, we took a break. What happened? Scenario 7 melee. So we actually didn't take a break. Mike just decided to run away from me, and I had to drag him back.
As these things go.
Yeah, it's sometimes you just got to finish what you're doing.
Yeah.
Scenario 7 is called melee. And this is deployed regularly, so 4 feet across from each other. And so to explain this one, 2 feet from your table edge and 1 foot from the left and right side are each a 12-inch zone. And then 18 inches up and 2.5 feet from the left and right side is a 6-inch zone. So for player 1 on the left, 1 foot over, 2 feet up, 12. 2.5 feet over, 1.5 foot up, 6. And then from the player 2 side, so this would be your opponent. From the right going left, you have 1 foot over, 2 feet up is a 12, and then 2.5 feet over, 1.5 foot up, there'd be a 6. And that's kind of how it's mirrored. And that's it. If you want to watch a game between Mike and myself, you can look at episode 8 of the Bow Reports, and you can see Mike playing some Norse into me, who's playing 100 Kingdoms on this actual scenario. So for scoring, you have players gain 2 VPs for each 6-inch objective zone they are seizing, 3 VPs for each 12 objective zone they are seizing, an additional 2 VPs if they are seizing 2 or more objective zones. They get 2 VPs for slaying the enemy warlord, 2 VPs for every character and 2 VPs for every regiment. So this is get onto his zones, kill people for points. Traditionally, with the scenario packet, and you kind of are forced to put train, I feel, in a couple either weird or defining spots that don't affect the scenarios and where the actual fighting is going. You can put, I guess, terrain very easily like right across from the 2 6s, but once you start getting close to those 12s, you can't put any terrain into there, and so it just kind of leaves like a big hole where people are going to be fighting over. Like you can put terrain on the other side of them, but it's like, they're just going to move over.
Yeah.
So once again, this is very much a scenario where when Mike and I played this, we just started throwing terrain everywhere and put a ton of line of sight blocking and buildings and stuff in the way just to like really force that conflict. I don't mind that the scenario is so widespread out, especially because all of it is in that 2 feet. Like, I don't know if I wanted to describe this as like the action zone, but like the middle 2 feet of the table, where a lot of people are going to be fighting their enemy. Like this is where all the all the clashes and fights are going to be happening. So there's zones there to also score them. But a lot of your points from this one is actually going to be happening from killing regiments, killing characters, killing the warlord. So like, killing the warlord's regiment gets you like 6 points right off the bat, which is kind of a really nice spike. And then killing other characters and regiments just gets you a 4 and like 2, and you're just it really incentivizes you to get into those zones, and then it incentivizes you to just kill everything.
Yeah.
I don't actually mind this one at all. I think it's pretty good. How about you?
It's one of my favorites, actually. I always enjoy myself when I play it. It's
is this number 1?
Yeah, personally, I think it might be my number 1. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but it's good. It's gives you some meaningful choices within how you approach splitting up and taking the zones, and yeah.
And
it doesn't. It's not too reliant on giving you crazy spikes with capping too many zones either. Like you get what you get. Like it's
you get in this one you get a majority of points for actually just kill points, so killing stuff. While the zones are just a reason to force a conflict. It's kind of like what I feel scenario should be. It should be a reason to force a conflict and not just sitting back unloading shots into your opponent. Like, because if you ever play a game where it's just on the parking lot with no scenario, or you just throw terrain down, usually the gun faction wins just because they just shoot your opponent because they have no reason to come forward ever.
Yeah.
Melee, I think, is a greatly designed scenario because it gives you a reason to fight, and you score points via fighting.
Yeah, exactly. It really gets down to the essence of Conquest, the last argument of kings.
Yeah, where we're arguing about crap. Should we go on to Bulwark scenario?
Yeah.
8? Like, I know we didn't really spend much time with Melee, but it's good. It's solid. I don't have really anything hugely negative to say about it because it does its job, and it does its job well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a scenario I'd probably use if I was introducing somebody to the game, for instance.
Yeah, and that's a really good recommendation for this scenario. Play number 7. You'll enjoy yourselves. And we're back. So we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we are back, and we're at scenario 8 here, Bulwark. So we've been ranking them, and we kind of had some audio problems. We do have a couple ranks. Mike's going to re-rank a couple of these, but I'm going to give him his rank from the previous day and see if they still line up from a couple days later. Bulwark. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, because I forgot what I picked when we originally attempted to record this for context. But I guess Mass wrote it down, so now we can see how my opinions have drifted after 2 days.
It's mostly like we were talking about earlier or 2 days ago that we were going to put these in at the very end of this whole thing. We're going to put them in order, like which ones we think is the best to worst. So I needed to list them somehow. It's not like I'm going to go through the audio.
That's fair. I was just going to wing it and then not worry about it too much. So you're really ahead of the game in many ways.
Oh, I just have a notepad and a pencil. Like, I know you. Yeah, I know, right? You have to take the hair out of your head and like lay it down into formed letters.
Yeah. Well, I bought one of those computers that doesn't come with notepads, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I still use the written format.
I was arguing with somebody, and I thought that they were being shitty to me about like opening a PDF or something, and I was like, my computer can't do that, to be shitty to them back. And then they responded in a way that made me realize that they were like being sincere in the first place. I felt really bad. Anyway.
You're still tormenting people who are trying to be nice.
Well, I didn't think they were trying to be nice. It just dawned on me after the fact.
Oh, man.
After that, I had already gone into defensive mode.
Oh, my God. All right. Should we get into Bulwark?
Yeah.
All right. I'll describe Bulwark. Bulwark is a scenario that the reinforcement zones are 4 feet apart. So this is your deployment. There is two 12-inch zones. They are, how do I explain this? They are 18 inches up from your deployment, and then 18 inches centered from the right of first player, and then the same way on the left player, or sorry, not the left player, the second player, but from the left. So they're across from each other. And then they have 3 objectives. There's a neutral objective smack dab right in the middle of the board, and then there is how do I put this? Your opponent's objective is in the zone that's closest to you, while your objective is in the zone that's furthest away from you. So, because objectives contest, the zone that's closest to you, you have to kill the objective first before you can start scoring that zone. So for points, we got 2 VPs for killing the enemy objective marker, 3 VPs for killing the center objective marker, 3 VPs for scoring the zone, additional 3 for scoring 2 or more zones. Well, I guess 2 zones. And you get 3 VPs if you slay an enemy warlord, and 2 VPs for killing enemy regiments. This one's not really my favorite per se. Mike, what do you think about this one?
No, it's I don't generally as a mechanic like the objective markers activating objective zones mechanic. It seems like it would be interesting, but in practice they kind of need to be separate components of the board design. So yeah, I'm not crazy about this one either. I feel like I gave it a low ranking. I feel like I'll give it a low ranking again, but I think you also said it in passing, so it's poisoned my brain. But this would be definitely, I think, a 10.
Yes, you did have a 10 on this one.
Yeah, but that's because we didn't know the contours of the arrangement, and we spoiled that one for ourselves. But it's fine. The other ones, there will be a purity of ignorance that this scenario just didn't have. But anyway, but what are your thoughts?
All right, so we discussed the train earlier in the podcast and also 2 days ago. So like, the listener will have to, I guess, like be nice to us, please. It's been a while. Like I got to get back into the groove of talking about nonsense. So train wise, this one's pretty decent in allowing you to put train in different spots to affect the table. The problem is that the zones are too far apart. So what happens is it becomes fights for like each half of the table, and then once let's say you win a fight on one side, you need to start swinging everything around to the other side of the table. That can take a lot of time, and the game can end before that. Or if you have something fast, and you can get over there, but then you might still be stalled out to round off the game. So I think if I recall correctly, my big thing about this was that I wanted to see the tip, like where the A and B objective markers and the zones themselves moved over 6 inches closer to the middle of the table. So they would still be a foot and a half up from each player's deployment, but then they would be 2 feet over from each side, closer to that middle. So you could still be relevant, and it would kind of force that conflict in the middle, and things would be able to get across to each zone more effectively in a timely manner to be relevant. Because I had a game, I think it was episode 3 of the battle reports, where my opponent cleared off one zone, I cleared off another, and then I had to swing super hard and go pretty far to get to the other player's zone to start killing them stuff, forcing me to leave my zone because they were scoring at that point. Like, they were ahead of me, so I had to do something to try and win. So I left the zone that I had secured. My only saving grace to getting there and kind of being relevant and maybe getting it was that I had double time and I had cavalry or speed 7. So things that are March 5 and going like with a banner, so they're going 11 inches, are not going to be able to cross that gap fast enough to be relevant, especially like turn 6 plus.
Yeah. I think this is also another scenario that has well, I guess this isn't the most egregious offender overall, but this one has maybe too many opportunities to score or to turn it around. There needs to be an element of that. I can't remember what part of this that I really got into it on, so if we have the audio earlier or not, and I'm just repeating myself, and if that's the case, I don't apologize for it. But I don't. So I ran, and this is just me maybe being bitter because of a personal experience that I had going into the recording of this, or like 5 consecutive personal experiences. But
I mean, have you played a lot of Bulwark and it did not go well?
Not Bulwark in general, but just as a general commentary on the scoring in this scenario pack. Like, there are lots of. I've had games where I've like scored or been in like a winning position for more like a majority of the turns of the game, but then because of the snowballing like multiplier mechanics or the kill mechanics, like somehow if it can work out that just like somebody can pull it all back and then surpass me in like fewer turns than it took for me to get the lead that I had, that almost seems also not quite in balance.
The catch-up mechanics, like, that's kind of what they are. And I played so the day after we recorded the first half of this, I played a City States game with 100 Kingdoms, and I actually was talking to one of our locals about that. Like, the catch-up mechanics favor, I want to say, like, slower factions, like Dwag, but I don't find Dwag slow because they have Infernal Autonoma, Steel Forge, the Drakes. Like, they have fast things in their list. It's just their infantry is all the consistent speed, but a majority of everyone's infantry is like speed 5 or
speed
March
5 is
6.
just infantry
like,
speed in this game.
Yeah, like, it's not, so that's not fast. So like, I find, and I do, like, the catch mechanics are players gain an additional 3 VPs if they're seizing 2 objective zones. Like, that's a catch-up mechanic. So if you control both, you're getting another 3, so you're also scoring 3 VPs for each zone, so you're getting 9 points if you control both those zones.
Yeah.
If your opponent, let's say, is scoring 3 points for the first 4 turns... I can do math. 3 times 4 was that 12? Yeah, so 12. They get 12 points, and then you score 9 points for the let's say the next 2 turns. You're at 18. Like, that was very quick for you to just push your opponent out real fast. And maybe those maybe scenarios should be updated so that those catch-up mechanics are gone, because it's either like the rich get richer because you battle it out, your opponent's been holding that zone, your opponent's been holding that zone, your opponent's been holding that zone, they're putting that scenario pressure on you, but they're still trying to fight for that last zone, and they're contesting it, you can't get those points, and then in the last 3 turns of the game, you push them off, take both zones, you score 9, 18, 27 points for controlling both those zones. Like, damn, you just shot up.
Yeah.
Like, while your opponent the previous turns was, get my handy calculator out. So let's say turn 2, 3 times 6. So 7 turn for round 7, they score 18, and then 8, 9, and 10. So 9 times 3. You're at 27. Like, the entire first half of the game for scoring didn't matter because that catch-up mechanic is so strong.
Yeah.
And I just used a calculator to figure that out.
So I think a good catch-up mechanic should, I don't know, like, it should let you scrape out a win but without enabling you to just like blast back in the last 3 turns and
Yeah, because now your opponent is playing catch up, but they've spent all their resources and army at the start of the game to keep you out and keep you away. While it seems better to push them up. Or here's one that I like doing some reading online and like talking to some of our locals was maybe have the game length shorten. So instead of 10 rounds, make it 8.
Yeah.
Because currently scoring is on round 2, and with that, if you make it 8, and a lot of fighting is usually resolved by turn 6 and like turn 6, 7. So turn 8 really becomes that cleanup, like, and then like kind of start catching up point. So if you had 1 turn of additional scoring, that could be a really good catch-up mechanic, because at that point maybe you're neck and neck and that's what breaks you through.
Yeah.
But because the game ends sooner, it becomes more relevant. Like it isn't going to hurt the player who scored early and often earlier, because the opponent who's going to be using that catch-up mechanic doesn't have very many turns to benefit from it, like currently where it says turn 10.
Yeah.
Like if I was to change scenarios and adjust them, like there'd be like, these scenarios aren't like bad. They just need adjustments. Like you kind of hear me talk about like bringing them together more, not being as far out, or having, terrain in relative places, because those are things that affect the board and table to make the game more interesting, fun, and give you force you to make choices and decisions. Because like in our movement and positioning episode, you got to find your way around all this stuff to get into the zones to score those points. Like I don't mind that like a heroic victory exists at all in this the scenario packet, because it allows players to focus hard on the things that matter. What is scenario? Like you should be focusing on scenario, because that does balance factions out into each other, of what faction is good into what. But currently, because the catch-up mechanic is there and it benefits the, like, I want factions that are endgame factions, like I guess the early game factions and the mid game factions, they just kind of get bullied and pushed out if they don't work harder, and they just can't win against those factions. So that's like, so as an example, that'd be like your Dwag, Old Dominion. Who knows what the fuck Spires is doing?
Yeah.
But early mid game scoring factions are like Nords, Wadroons, 100 Kingdoms. But they don't have the survivability per se to just sit on objectives and like score them out to win. They're just gonna get their stuff slaughtered. So I like that's kind of the choice. Either remove the catch-up mechanic or shorten the game length if you still want the catch-up mechanic in the game. Like, or hear me out. Move start of scoring to turn 3. It used to be turn 4. Now it's turn 2. Put it in the middle. Maybe go to turn 3. See how, like, small adjustments like that. Like, try one, play a bunch of games, try another one, play again. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I trying to talk to the developer? Like, no one listens to us. Like, Jesus. but that's the idea.
Yeah.
Like, when you're looking at it, is small changes. Don't implement all 3, because that's just gonna be like, you're gonna be back at the same place you currently are.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's a tough one, but right now, yeah, like you said, it definitely favors the game, like the armies that are going to be good at the end of the game. But unfortunately, the game is designed to have sort of factions that excel at different phases of the game as part of the mechanical landscape of the designs. So it gets tough with that, and I don't know. It's finding that sweet spot, I guess, is just tough. So I'm not gonna act like it's not. But generally speaking, it's just a little too weird in this pack. Generally speaking, and especially with the kill points on top of it.
Yeah, like if it was my choice, I would probably get rid of all kill points except for maybe the Warlord kill point.
Yeah.
Or characters, one of the two. and then I would start pushing scenario elements to be more relative to each other, and so there's less, not dead space, but there's more reason to interact with them, and they're more interactable.
Yeah.
And then I don't mind start scoring at turn 2. I'd probably shorten the game length down from like 9 or 8 rounds instead of 10. Like, I'd start there. That's where I'd start.
Yeah, I don't think 8 rounds is too terrible. I mean, I like, because a lot of their games, it's like they seem to be 3 to 5 turns, and it's like that's all well and good, but you know, I want to really feel like I'm doing the thing here. So having
What I find after round 8, the game's kind of decided at that point. Like,
it very often is. I've had a couple go to the last turn, and had it be relevant. The one thing I'll say as an exception is, like, if the scenario is designed for kill points first and foremost, and the objective zones are simply there to focus people on fighting one another, then like that's one scenario. Like, you could get one in the pack that's like that, and it would be fine.
just put a circle in the middle and say, and the scenario is called "Go Get 'em."
Did I tell you about that dream I had?
All right, tell me about your scenario dream.
Yeah, I dreamt I went to the LGS to play a game of Conquest, whether it was for the weekly game or one in addition to normal, as we do every week. And I started playing against Dwegome, which is, you know, pretty on the nose, but I was getting annihilated in the first few turns, like just absolutely getting the shit kicked out of me. And then it clicked for me, like, oh, this table is just one 12-inch objective zone right in the middle with nothing else on the table at all. And then I pointed it out to the person I was playing, and they were like, well, do you want to stop? Do you want to restart the game? And I was like, no, I don't want to look like a coward.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I have to play this out. And then I woke up.
I'm a strong, independent Nord.
Yeah.
And I will die by the Nord.
Yeah, it was such a stupid dream.
Wow, that's your stress dreams about
Apparently.
Conquest.
And it's like, it's so stupid, I feel like, you know, it's not made up.
I remember playing War Machine years ago, and when you after you do like a couple demo games and you have a new player who's like building up their faction or whatever and all their models, you would play like a 12-inch zone right in the middle of the table and just play King of the Hill and be like first to 3, and you kind of do that to build them up, and like, okay, you know, here's a scenario, like, you know, get into the things that you could be relevant, so you're not hiding in the back, because it forces a conflict. But like, that's all you did, except you're playing 2,000 points, and it's just the dumbest shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Let's not do that one. Should we move to scenario 9 and
Yeah.
move away from your horrible
now that
nightmares?
now that we've done a little dream analysis.
All right. Next one is Bottleneck. This one is a hammer and anvil style deployment, so you are 6 feet apart from your opponent. These are asymmetrical, so the 18.5 inches up the table, there is a 6-inch friendly zone from each of the players' deployment, and then at the 3-foot mark from each opponent and a foot in from each side of the table is a 12-inch zone. For points, you get 2 VPs for controlling each 12-inch zone. You get a 4 VPs for controlling your opponent's friendly objective zone. So, you know, if you make it across the table, you get 4 VPs for scoring your opponent's zone. You get 2 VPs if you slay the enemy warlord, and 2 VPs for killing every character. This one, how do I say this one? It's not bad. There are some problems with it. For terrain wise, the 12-inch zones are kind of, I want to say, kind of too big. Like, you can still put terrain between the friendly zone of the 12 and then in between each 12, but it's kind of limited on terrain placement because it's a little too much focused in the middle and how the lists are coming to handle one another, because they only have 4 feet of deployment instead of the regular 6 feet.
Yeah.
So a lot of the list is scrunched up. So more terrain is going to be in the way by your deployment, so that you have to decide on how to get from your deployment to the scenario. Another one is that because this is a hammer and anvil style deployment, by the time your lights start fighting, your heavies are already on the table and probably moved up a good chunk. Like when you guys don't, you won't be start fights until like turn 4, turn 5. Well, in a regular deployment where you're only 4 feet apart, you're gonna start fights usually around turn 2 and 3. Like shots are gonna start getting fired, and maybe people are gonna start charging into people. So because it's turn 4 when you're actually getting fights in, a majority of each player's list is on the table. So they're fighting for those paths and they're like the pathways to get to each objective. And on top of that, because the majority of the list is on the table, it's going to be very hard for yourself and your opponent to break through your list and go for that objective zone in the back end of your table.
Yeah.
Currently, with how this is set up, I don't mind the two 12-inch zones where they are. It's just that the friendly zones are too far back to be relevant, so that someone might be able to like sneak and grab it really quick, like run over there, charge and kill something that's defending it, and then like score it for a turn or two before they get pushed off.
Yeah.
They're too far back currently, and that just allows your opponent to kind of like, run up there and set the line, and you have to basically kill their list to get to them. So I don't find them very relevant. I'd like to see them 2 feet up from the deployment and not just a foot and a half up from deployment.
Yeah, I think that'd be the fix, because there's just if I was playing that scenario, I would just ignore my friendly zone, because the line that's going to get established by the two clumps fighting over the 12-inch zones is going to pretty much make it like
that's the fight.
Not worth it to try and push through. And to what end? Like you get a decent amount of victory points, but you're only going to get at most probably a turn or two if you're playing against an opponent who knows what they're doing. So
like that could be the catch-up mechanic quotes where, okay, you've killed your opponent's entire army. Now you can score 3 of the objective zones to score a bunch of points. Like, yay, we're back with the promise scenario, like the catch-up mechanic.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's a catch-up mechanic, but it's also when they're that far back and you're gonna have all your fighting concentrated on like a line straight down this, like the center line of the map, then it's like it's not. It just becomes a weird opportunity thing that you can't plan for, I feel like, without really designing your list into the specific scenario, which is also, to me, an extremely alien approach.
Well, you're designing would be classified as a silver bullet. So the list. So if you design, so we'll do a podcast episode about a silver bullet. But what it is in a generalized term is that you're designing your list to do one very specific thing very well, and that's it. So if you go into, let's say, a tournament and you bring a silver bullet that is, let's say, specifically designed to kill Dwag and Lin on scenario 1, 4, and 8, it's going to succeed at those things. But let's say in that tournament you fight no Dwag and you play on scenarios 2, 12, and 7, well, you're going to have a bad time. And that gets into like a bit of a list design aspect and why building a silver bullet is not the greatest idea for your list construction. So, you got any more to say about this, or do you want to rank it?
I don't mind this one overall. Like it's not as bad as maybe I've made it out to be. I just don't think that the shtick necessarily lands completely on its own. But I seem to feel like out of all the side deployment maps, it's probably one of the ones I hate the least. So I don't have, again, not remembering what I've ranked anything except for the one that we just talked about. I don't know, 4.
No, you gave this one an 8.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Number number 5, scenario number 5 is 4, and that is
No, old me was smarter. That's
Forlorn
an 8.
Hope. Yeah, that totally is an 8. All right. Should we go on to scenario? Scenario 10. This one is head to head. So I actually played this one the other day, and there's a reason why I played it. This scenario is regular deployment, so you're 4 feet apart from your opponent. You have a 12-inch zone on the right side of the picture that is, the center of it is 18 inches from the right side and 2 feet up the table. So if you're player 1, that's on your right side. If you're player 2, that's on your left. And then there are 2 6-inch friendly objectives. They are a foot up the table from each player's deployment, and then a foot and a half from the left side of the table if you're player 1, or the right side for player 2. So the 2 6-inch zones are across from each other, a foot up from each deployment, and then there's a 12-inch zone right in the middle, 18 inches from the other side. For victory points, you gain 3 VPs for scoring the 12-inch zone. You gain 4 VPs for scoring your opponent's opponent zone. You get 2 VPs for killing the warlord, 2 VPs for killing the enemy character, and you gain 2 VPs for every rendered and killed. Mike, I'm going to let you talk about this first. What do you think?
I like this one, personally. I think, in contrast to the other one, I think it's a little bit more of... I like the asymmetry of it, and that there's 2 different sort of channels that are demanding sort of 2 different things. So you can, if you have... you can play it different ways depending on how your enemy is deploying. If you're able to counter deploy effectively, you can potentially take one side and then I don't know. I think it's a good scenario just because you've got 2 different sort of things going on each side of the map more than anything else, which I think is its main strength. Like having to fight your way all the way over to get that enemy VP is a tough one, but I think there's more of an incentive to go for it on this map
Than other maps we've seen?
Yeah, exactly.
So I played this one the other day, actually, and the reason why I played it is because... Actually, tell me what we think the ranking for this one is, and then I'll go through my whole rant.
This one, I feel like I ranked way higher, so probably like in the 3 zone.
You gave this one number 2.
Yeah.
So we recorded the first half of this podcast, and then we had our audio issue, so I already knew that this was number 2. And the way we discussed it, I was like, you know what? I'm bringing one of our locals to my home, into my dungeon that is my basement, and we're gonna play a game. So, and this we played head to head. And because we rated it number 2 and what we talked about, I think it's really good. So what we talked about, to reiterate for Mike and the listeners, is that this scenario is very good for terrain placement because it has a lot of open space, but it's also very good because it has 2 distinct lanes in it that you have to make a decision where, are you going to try and go further to score more VPs but on your opponent's side, who will have a easier time to reinforce and counterattack? Or are you going to run over and commit a lot of your energies towards the 12-inch zone? Because each of them are very far away from each other, you have to kind of choose. And you can put a lot of terrain between the 2 6s, between the 2 6s and the 12, around the 12, around the 6s. Like, you could put a terrain in a lot of areas to be relevant, to block off and force different pathways for each player to go from one side of the table to the other. Because at some point, a player is going to lock down that 12-inch zone, and another player is going to, the opponent is going to gamble to get to the opponent's, or I guess your friendly zone, like to get to the friendly zone and score those 4 VPs to outscore the 3 VPs from the 12. And that's exactly what happened during my 100 Kingdoms vs. City States game. I came up, secured that 12-inch zone, and then my opponent tried to go for my 6-inch zone. I fought him back for a while, but eventually he gets a medium regiment in there, and I'm just like shooting it with points. But by the time he gets that medium regiment there to score those points, I'm already far enough forward on points that I don't have to worry about him winning from it. So there was choices, there was decisions made, and I initially put a lot of my forces towards that 12-inch zone, but I put my cavalry 100 kingdoms in the middle so that I could split off and choose which side I wanted to go to, depending on what my opponent was going to do. So I was getting ready, trying to outthink. I don't want to use outthink, but like, you know, prep for what's going to be happening by having my cavalry in the middle, so that because they're a faster choice than my infantry options to support which side needed the more support.
Yeah,
and it paid off, and I won that game.
Nice.
Yeah. Spoilers, but I'm pretty sure the City 6 game battle report, what's going to be number 10, is going to come out before this podcast.
Almost certainly. Well, that means people can go back and do the thing.
Yeah, they can look at it. Yeah, so you said number 2. Now, number 11 and number 12 you did not rank, so you get to pick for those ones. Let's see here. You have 3 and 9. Those are your last 2 numbers you get to pick from.
3 and 9. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't feel like either of these are 3 material.
Well, scenario 11 is Maelstrom, and we both don't have a good feeling about this. This is fucking 9 hard, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's definitely a hard 9. With a name like that, you'd think it was great, but it does not live up to the expectation.
To describe Maelstrom, what is scenario 11? It is regular deployment, so you're 4 feet apart from your opponent. This is, I believe, the only scenario in the packet that actually uses a 9-inch zone, and I think this was stolen from the... Oh, what the heck was it? I believe the core rulebook that comes in like the starter boxes. I don't know why this one keeps showing up. Like, I would truthfully be like, if I could toss a scenario, this one. Not even the one that we voted as 12. I'd probably go.
Yeah,
with
the only reason I picked the one that was 12 before was because I didn't realize that this one was coming up.
Should we adjust it? Should we just put this one as 11? I'll just adjust everything. Or sorry, this one is 12, and I'll just adjust everything. Okay, you're 12. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, you just got 12.
Okay, so you could go to your 12. You could go to.
Who was the previous
11,
12?
10, 9. All right.
Probably off balance.
It was scenario 6, actually. Is it off balance?
Yeah.
It is off balance.
Okay, that one's 11 now. What was 11? We gotta work our way through this.
Scenario 3. Oh, Breakout.
Breakout. Okay.
Yeah, I did a JoJo's meme for this one.
Right.
Number 8 was the previous 10.
Okay, 3 can be the new 9. I'm okay. I'm comfortable with that. That we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Oh, you want 8 to still be 10, but you want 3 to be 9?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll adjust it. So you can be 9 and you can be 10. There, we've organized the tier list.
So back to Maelstrom. All
right. Do you want to describe it, or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I'll describe it. So you place 2 9-inch objective zones. Each is 1 foot in from the sides on either side and 2 feet in from the deployment zones. So right in the middle on either wing, and then you've got a 6-inch zone that is just dead center of the map. So 2 feet in from the deployment side, and then 3 feet in, from the sides. So turns. This is actually the only turn 1 scoring scenario as well.
How you're gonna get there, Bogavina? Like, I guess you have. Oh no, can you get there? So 24. You have 9-inch diameter. That means you have 4.5. So, I'm doing some math here. That's 19.5 inches. So if you take mounted squires, which are speed 9. And they run their speed on 18. They go to 19. I think they're just out. Because you'd be 19.5 away.
Yeah, I don't know if anything...
the scenario. Like, is there anything that's a light with speed 10? Because that's it. It's a light with speed 10. I'm
Nothing.
trying to find the army builder.
Yeah, so they just dangle that carrot. Well, I guess maybe if you hold on.
Oh, this is the secret tech here on scenario ranked as 12.
Yeah, so stay with me here, right? So you Raptor Riders with a Huntress are going to be able to move up 19, and then if you hit a 90-degree turn with fluid formation at the end, sorry, not 19, 17, then you might just be able to like Tokyo Drift.
With the Raptor Riders into the zone?
Yeah, if you had like a Brood Mother on it.
Oh, because you need a medium still to score it.
Yeah, but if you had the Queen on the
God.
Brood, she could just you could just come in and like power slide. Maybe. I don't even know. I think maybe it's possible. And I don't want to get up and go over to my table and clear off a space to like measure it out.
You need to attempt this. You got to get the practical in a sterile lab setting.
Yeah, I have to go over to the simulation bed and
Load up a nightmare scenario again.
yeah, run it out
for your dream sequence.
Yeah.
Okay. So fucking stupid. Don't build the silver bullet, please. It's not a good idea.
No, I think that's a hilarious idea. The turn one scorer.
Yeah, fuck. If someone did that to me, I'd be like, what the fuck is happening? And why am I playing this goddamn awful scenario?
But imagine if you lost by like 2 points because of it. You would be mad the entire drive home.
I don't...
Just stewing.
I think... Okay, here, how about this? I will make a pact with you. If, let's say...
if neither of us are married by 30...
Yeah, we're gonna do some weird shit together. If someone does this to us, we have to pick up all our stuff and leave. Like, I don't even care if they win at that point. Like, they just because you're gonna fucking do it to me is for the memes. That's the problem.
Yeah, in my head I was like, well, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, you're gonna torment me with this. So okay, if someone does that to you and wins the game, you have to pack up your models. You got to go to Dairy Queen and you gotta get a sad ice cream. Because your life sucks and you now need ice cream. And then you gotta send a picture to me, and if it happens to me, I'll send a picture to you with my sad ice cream.
I'm just gonna start treating myself to an ice cream after every game, win or lose.
Why are you not?
I'm gonna, cause I like ice cream.
Oh, okay.
What a treat.
Yeah, well, I gotta cement my victory by getting a victory ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna show up to the store one day, like 500-600 pounds, and be like, I'm undefeated.
That's the
That's the goal.
Well, that's how that's how nobles used to generate or to indicate wealth and status and power, as they say.
Should I get my my gout going as well? Just be like, I have the king's disease.
Yeah.
I'll become the noble lord, just swatting people with my sword.
Yeah, just hobble in there, powered by pure ice cream power.
Yeah, my ice cream power sword.
Wrecking everyone.
That's why I'm no longer Cleave 2. It's all the ice cream. Alright, let's explain why we hate this.
Yeah.
We're just making fun of it.
Because it stinks. It's so the scoring, which I didn't even get into. So on turn 1, 2, sorry, I'll read it verbatim. In this scenario, objective zones can be seized and points scored from round 1. At the end of rounds 1 to 4 or 9 to 10, players gain victory points as follows. Players gain 2 VPs for securing the 6-inch objective zone, and they get 1 VP for securing the 9-inch objective zone. At the end of rounds 5 to 8, players gain victory points as follows. Players gain 1 victory point for scoring the 6-inch zone, and they gain 2 victory points for securing the 9-inch zone. The standard end conditions. I think the idea of shifting or moving scoring like that is interesting, just not here.
No. So there's a couple problems with it, and the first one is the the mental load of the change up in scenario. So this goes to, I'm going to use a War Machine example. In Mark II, there was a scenario called Incursion. And Incursion literally had 3 flags in the middle of the table, and after round 2 or 3, they would do a random roll, and you would remove one of those flags. So basically, scoring would start, and they would remove one of those flags. So people would be move up all their lists, and then they would be like, okay, I'm gonna, I've locked this down, I'm gonna score it, and then the random roll goes off, and you lose the flag, and it's like, well, now I have a bunch of guys over here doing nothing. So it was kind of shitty. This one invokes a similar mindset / design because you're changing up the point scored between the zones. So when you're playing a game, let's say in a tournament setting, and then round 5 happens, and it's like, okay, well, I still get my 2 VPs for turn 6, or having the 6 zone, and then it goes to turn 5, and you're like, oh crap, now I only get 1 VP. Like, it's too, like, the thing about scenario is that it's consistent. Like, I know once I get into the zone, I am scoring these amount of points. If you start switching it up, and then and because it doesn't switch like once, like for the first half of the game you score this, for the second half of the game you score that. It does a second switch up at turns 9 and 10. So
yeah,
it's just like, are you going to be remembering that as the game goes on? As well as each of these zones are 2 feet from each other in the center. What means it's actually tough for you to start running from one zone to the other to try and get onto those more VPs. And on top of that, like, because the zones are far enough apart and there's a wide enough space, you can put a good chunk of terrain in between the zones to like hinder and prevent people from just running across to the other one. So they'll be just wasting like 2 or 3 turns to get from one to the other, score that 1 point, and then be like, okay, it flips, and they're like running back.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. So what it kind of boils down to is you just go secure, I guess, 2 out of 3 of these, and then you just sit on them.
Yeah.
Like that is your optimal choice here, is to basically send. Like, you could literally send your entire lift after one of these 9-inch zones, and then bank 90 degrees and just send your entire list across the table towards the 6 and the 9, and just try and like win the fight like that, and then just ignore scoring and just leave a medium on each of these zones as you fight your way across.
Yeah.
To score whatever points you're gonna get. It's just it's too much of a mental load. The distance between each other is too far. You can put terrain that really hinders that and messes it up. Like, it's not good.
No. It's that's the thing with the way this, like, the scoring shifts, but there's not really a reason to do anything differently because of the way that it's shifting. Like, if zones were turning off or something and there was some obligation to move between zones, then like I think that would be interesting enough, but maybe even, unfortunately, maybe requires a little too much agility for this game specifically. But
it gets back into that. Well, it gets back into that mental load exercise where you're changing how you count points for zones 3 different effectively 3 different times throughout the game, because they switch back and forth, and it's like, I don't want to deal with this. I want to sit in the zone and it says 2 points. I get 2 points. Like, I have other shit I got to deal with. What's called kill my enemy and not die.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, if it was just for half the game it scores this way, and then for half the game it scores the other way, maybe that would be fine. But the additional switcheroo right at the end for 2 turns is kind of just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. If I had the choice to remove 2 scenarios from the entire pack, and I had to choose between whatever 11, 8, and 3 are, I would choose 11 twice.
Yeah, I feel that. It's just not it's a relic of the rulebook scenario pack, which is more of an exercise in learning the game than it is in serious play.
Yeah, and I don't think it belongs here. I do think it's good for the core rulebook and new players getting into the game, but for an actual scenario pack, this one can I'm gonna Spartan kick this one off the cliff and then laugh at it as it falls down. Like, god damn.
Yeah. Wow, you got Old Dominion on the brain. Or not Old Dominion, City States.
City States on the brain. Well, it's kind of like Old Dominion too. Oh man. I'm gonna sit you down and be like, all right, so dawn of time.
Nope. No, you are just talking to a wall.
Yeah. Should we get on to scenario 12 and wrap and finally get a ranking so we can present our full tier list to the listeners?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Scenario 12, grind them down. This one is played hammer and anvil style, so 6 feet apart from each other. From each player's deployment, there is a foot and a half up the table. There is a 6-inch zone, 1 foot in from the left side and 1 foot in from the right side. So each player is going to have that. And then right smack dab in the middle, so 3 feet up, 2 feet from the side, is a 12-inch zone, right smack dab in the middle. This one I actually played, I believe it was episode 6. I played it wrong with my opponent. We played it regular deployment, so there's only 4 feet apart from us. And I didn't mind it. There was actually not much of a change up with playing it wrong on how things would have interacted with each other. So I would actually give this scenario credence to, you could play it regular deployment or hammer and anvil and probably enjoy yourself. For scoring, so I'll talk about that. You gain 3 VPs for the 12-inch zone. You gain 2 VPs for seizing each 6-inch zone. You gain additional 2 VPs if you're seizing 2 or more zones. And you gain 2 VPs if you kill the enemy warlord. You gain 2 VPs for every character and 3 VPs for every 2 regiments that have been destroyed. I do like the change from 2 VPs, so like, because normally it says 2 VPs for every regiment, and it's changed it to 3 VPs for every 2 regiments. That one I think is a nice kills part, because now if you lose a regiment, it's not like your opponent's immediately going on scoring. They have to kill 2, and they only get 3 points instead of 4 if they kill 2. So it gives you an incentive to kill stuff, but it's not a huge amount.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more balanced of one of those catch-up mechanics. For scoring, this one's super easy to score the 2 6s. Like, if you have a medium and lights, you run your 11 inches and you get your 2 medium characters in the light units right up in those 6-inch zones, and you're scoring them, so you're getting your 6 points, and then it's literally a fight for that 12-inch zone. This table, or this scenario, takes terrain really well. You can block off the distances from the 6s from across from each other. You can put stuff in the way of the 12. You can put stuff on the zones. Well, you're not supposed to put stuff on the zones, but we do it anyway, just so that it's more fun and it allows more space to be opened up to have more terrain on the table. And even if you play it improperly, like I did, where you play it with regular deployment, you can run your characters into that, and it's still the same thing. Like, instead of being 3 feet away from each zone, you're now 2 feet, so there's that. Yeah. I overall actually like this one.
Yeah, I think this is a better version of the other multi-zone map, if I'm being quite honest.
Scoring?
Yeah.
Like Bottleneck?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Bottleneck.
It's sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just umming and awing like a normal person.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a better version of the other one, because splitting 5 is manageable, but 6 is too far. I don't know what to tell you. It's the center zone breaks things up enough that you can set a back line and then try to fight, but eventually you're going to have to start to commit from the back line as the fight wears on in the middle, ideally. So there's a bit of a push and pull there through the game, but it doesn't utterly favor factions
style
that can get 3 mediums on a zone really fast and hold them and still have the force to be elsewhere as well.
Well, everything is still far enough away from each other that it takes a while to get to those places. And you can also, let's say, have a medium character in a light, get onto that zone, score it. You have the medium come up behind them, the medium and the light move forward, score the 12. The medium gets onto the 6. Like, you kind of start doing this leapfrog of scoring across, and then you get into the fighty parts where you're killing the enemy warlord, the character, and then the regiment. So, yeah, you're kind of looking to like leapfrog your mediums and lights and heavies through the 6 inches, but you want something that can sit on them, that isn't going to, I'm not going to say like disrupt your plans, but like allows ease of flow. Like when you're looking at scenario and building your list, you should be having a medium character in a light or a medium regiment. What's whole purpose is to sit in zones. So as a 100 Kingdoms player, Men-at-Arms is a fantastic example of that. Another really good example of that is Militia Bowman and Atheist Priest, because Atheist Priest is medium and he'll sit in zone for days, and because he has ranged buffing, he can just buff people from a distance, and you can kind of just shoot out some spells from him. You can do some other stuff too to get him even further, but like that's kind of what you're looking for when you do bring those medium characters, is to try and have them still to support the rest of the list and score those back zones, especially if they're a support one, or you're running your cheapest mediums to score those back zones. So that might be your Hold Warriors from Dwag, your Blaves, Blooded. Pick one. I think Braves are cheaper.
Yeah, they're
but they have Bloodlust. We've got over that.
Yeah, Braves aren't the best choice just because they'll fuck off if you fail a die roll without a character to babysit them. I think the gold standard for backline objective chuds is Men-at-Arms, like you mentioned, and even with the point adjustment that they just got with the new army list that dropped today.
Oh yeah. Don't worry, everyone. We will be doing a podcast episode on that.
Yeah. Fenner Beast Packs are also pretty close to good as gold objective chuds, or as good as you can get without just being Men-at-Arms over again. They're a little bit different, but in ways that give you some
I think
options.
the Fenner's Beast Pack have better offensive ability than the Men-at-Arms, but much lower the defensive ability. So
yeah,
they can kill some stuff, but they do not want to take a hit, but they're also really good at scoring those back-end zones, if need be. Or maybe you want to be risky and you just run them up to like score your opponent's side of stuff or contest. Like the Fenner's Beast Pack are good for that, and I do like them for that.
Yeah, even with the point adjustment that they got, they're kind of still in the zone where it's like if they can score an objective for a couple turns and then die killing something, then you probably got your points worth.
Yeah. The last number to put is 3. Do you want to give this 3? I'm actually kind of fine giving this 3.
Yeah, this is definitely 3-pilled.
Yeah. So, should we run through the tier list?
Yeah.
All right. I have the list here, so I'm going to scroll to each one and then just shout them out. Should we go with? Should we go 12 to 1 or 1 to 12?
12 to 1.
All right. Number 12 is Scenario 11, Maelstrom. Fuck this one.
SFX, fart sound.
Get her out of here.
Yeah.
Number 11. So 11 our tier list is Scenario number 6, Off Balance. You're lucky that something was worse than you.
Yeah, only barely. I think that the real Conquest, the real last argument of Kings is trying to figure out which of these scenarios I don't like less.
I don't like less. Number 10 is Scenario number 8, Bulwark. And you're contesting zones. Not that great.
Yeah. Nothing.
Go ahead.
No, it's just nothing too exciting about that one.
Yeah. Number 9 is Scenario number 3, Breakout. More contesting zones, but it's more focused on everyone fighting in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's slightly better.
It's fine.
Oh, here we go. Let me scroll down. Yeah, skip you. All right. Scenario number 9, or our 8 spot is Scenario number 9, Bottleneck. as we mentioned before earlier on with Grind Them Down, basically Bottleneck is the bad version of Grind Them Down.
Yeah.
Right, and then I'm going to go to number 7. Number 7. Oh, I went too far. God. Number 7 is scenario number 1, Divide and Conquer. Kind of like a decent spot for the first scenario. Like, I always find it funny. Like, the first scenario is what a lot of people are going to play right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be your best scenario. But a lot of developers put their best scenario right in the middle.
Yeah.
And if you guys can guess which one's number 1, it's the one right in the middle of this whole packet. So number 7 is scenario number 1. Number 6, however, is scenario number 2, Last Stand. So the first 2 are kind of like your middle of the pack scenarios. It's not terrible, but I guess it gives you that teaser of what you're going to be getting into when you open up this packet. But I really think you should put your best scenario as number 1, because that's what people are going to play first.
Yeah.
We then go to number 5. So our 5th best scenario is number 4. What is Echelon? I personally hate Echelon, but you got to pick the ranking, so...
Yeah, so that was your mistake.
It's not bad. It just needs to move those 12 inches up like 6 inches and bring the back end scenarios up to that 12-inch line. Like, this just needs to be up closer more, and then it would be a good scenario. For number 4, we have scenario number 5, was Forlorn Hope. I think this one's a very good choice for 4 slot. I do like it a lot. It's close enough to be relevant to everything. All that fighting's in the middle, and it's... I don't want to say like it's approachable, but there are choices to be made in each of these that are relevant, and so it's very active. This is an active scenario.
Yeah.
Number 3, we talked about it last. That's Grind Them Down, all the way at the bottom here. You heard our opinions on this. This is just a better bottleneck, what does really well for itself. Number 2 is Head to Head. This is it has a lot of choices in it, a lot of terrain can be placed, and it's a really good, solid scenario. Yeah. And number 1 is scenario 7, what is Melee? Because you're basically fighting over those 2 feet in the middle while terrain can still get in between all the scenario objectives. And yeah, it's overall just a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just, that one started out number 1 2 days ago, and it stayed number 1 today.
So I'm gonna bring up a concept here kind of near the end after we've ranked all these, but there's active scenarios and unactive scenarios is kind of the concept, and basically this is relevant scenarios and unrelevant scenarios, and this is basically scenarios that force players to be active in doing something and constantly moving around and fighting for stuff, and that like you feel the pressure via the scenario to do stuff. Those ones a lot of players really like, and that's why you can kind of see they're ranked higher, because each of the ones that were ranked highest on this were very active, close together, waiting to get that fight to happen, while the things that were ranked lower were scenarios that were not very active, so they had contesting objectives in them already, so like you had to kill the objective first before you can even start scoring, so it's like putting you behind and weren't that great. So that's kind of the concept there, and that's why you see the active scenarios being more fun and interesting and better designed than the inactive ones, who are just, they're kind of just wasting your time and it's not really being relevant for you to push and take those scenario objectives, because it's either too much work, or you're not going to be in a good position, or they're just not great scenarios.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that future scenario packs will kind of tighten things up a little bit, because I think that's kind of a universal criticism that you can make about a lot of these, is there's no if you're a foot and a half away from everybody else once you've settled things, then that's going to take quite some time to be relevant again, so you can kind of play yourself out of being effective in a lot of the maps just by having to commit too far in a direction, and then having the the direction of the battle sort of shift as things mature.
Yeah. And we also talked about like the catch up mechanic on these scenarios and how they're kind of like changes need to happen in either when scoring happens, reducing the catch up mechanic, or changing the game length. Like start with one of those and then go from there, just because it just benefits like the factions that can take a hit really well and then counterpunch,
Yeah.
and then just storm over the rest of the table as the the early game factions run out of steam because all their stuff is dead, and then they just score out the last couple turns. So if let's say like I don't mind if these catch-up mechanics are still here and we score on turn 2, but if the game length went down to 8, that changes that out a lot, and like the player who did that early scoring can still win the game but still have it close.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's the change, instead of like the game ending at round 10, ends at round 8.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be interested in seeing how that went.
Yeah. Like I don't like overall this scenario packet. I do find it better than the previous scenario packet. I think there were, or the previous one. There's the one that I started in, and that was kind of rough.
Yeah.
But this the scenarios have come quite a ways, but there are ways to make them better and more relevant and more fun for players, and start looking at balancing the factions around the scenario as well, because some things that are strong can be weak if the scenario is designed properly, so that how do I put this? They can be weak or balanced around the scenario, because scenario is the way to win the game. So they're not as much of like an OP pub stomping, really tough thing to deal with that your opponent has to like spend no time thinking. They just move it up the table and kill whatever's in front of them.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Steelforge. If you can't figure it out, it's Steelforge.
Yeah.
Even with the changes, it's Steelforge.
Yeah.
God damn it! I will die on that hill. I will die on multiple hills. It's Steelforge.
Yeah. There's too many hills and not enough me.
Yeah, I can't carve myself up into enough bits to cover all these hills. All right. What do you have anything? I think we should wind her down and wrap her up. What about you, Mike?
Yeah. I think that's. I mean, we've covered all of them and we've given the rankings, so I don't know how much more there is to really cover at this point. But overall, it's a scenario pack that served us pretty well from 1.5 through to 2. I guess it'll be 2.1 as of tomorrow when I play my first game under the revised 2.0 rules.
Yeah, I have to go to a birthday party, so I won't be around.
Well,
that's why I got my game in yesterday.
Yeah.
So I had to be first, number one. That's me.
That's fair.
Mm-mm.
So you did use the new rules?
Yeah, I did use the new rules actually.
How'd you find them?
So I ran. I'll do a quick rundown. So I played 100 Kingdoms. So things I did like was that banners were cheaper. So I actually put banners on regiments that I traditionally wouldn't, because I didn't have enough points left over, and I would just pick character upgrades or whatever. Like I'd fill other things out before I start putting banners. And because banners got cheaper, instead of putting banners on one unit, I put it on both my get banners last unit. So that was actually a really nice change. Another change, Dynastic Alliance is just always on, what allows me to go into veterans. So I think dipping into a unit of Household Knights that are fully buffed by a Mounted Noble Lord, so they would get Ophelia's Roar, Tip of the Lance for the new Wedge, exclamation mark rule, and Speed of Horse on veterans Household Knights. And you get a bunch of those guys, so they go up to Clash. They effectively go up to Clash 4, rerolling 6s, Terrifying 1, and then they get Cleave 1 on their attacks. So they do 4 impacts at Clash 4, and then Terrifying 1 for the resolve, and then they do 5 attacks at Clash 4 Inspired with Cleave 1. And I would actually dip into that Household Knight brick in my list building just for that hammer. They still die. Like I had a unit of Minotaur Hespis that just fucking killed them.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, so this like 490 point unit just got killed by 180 point Minotaur Hespis because it got charged on the side and just died.
Love to see it.
So I still don't view knights as a tanky unit because they're still very quick to die. But they are a very good hammer now. And the reason why I think they outclass Crimson Towers, who also have Wedge just innately due to the change, is because the tournament champion puts them to March 9 on their charge, which allows you to threat farther, allows you to keep them safer so opponents don't just win the roll off, march charge into you, and stop all the things they're doing.
Yeah.
Crimson Towers still have that problem because they're March 7, so they need to get closer to charge. And if they want to use that Wedge, now you want to roll that charge to also get the benefit of Wedge. And you either get into the same predicament where you're failing the roll and not getting there because you need to be far enough back so your opponent doesn't just march charge into you, or you trying to desperately win the roll off. And as you've seen from my games, I don't win the roll off all the time, so it's like great. So they get charged and bogged down, and now they're not getting their brutal impact 2s, they're not getting their impact attacks because they didn't charge, they don't get their Wedge. Like, the same problem happens, and that's why I feel they should go to Movement 8, is because the problem that they were having was that they would just get bogged down before they could charge, and they still do.
Yeah.
So, besides that, everything else was fine. Like, it was good. And the big thing I wanted to play and test was the cavalry, and that's kind of my conclusion, is Household Knight stock is up, in the caveat that you super buff one unit and you will have a good time. Crimson Tower stock is still the same, with the caveat you are basically going to take Crimson Towers to take a unit of Ashen Dawn, what are actually good. And until Order of the Sword comes out, I would, like, once Order of the Sword come out, I'm literally just going to run Order of the Sword and Ashen Dawn, and probably run an Imperial Officer just to get the Vanguard March. Like, that's the list idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's thoughts and ideas of what's going on. I'm just waiting for releases, but Crimson Towers are still, even, like, you can buff their melee or their damage output to the moon, but if they can't trigger that successfully or consistently, it's pointless. Like, it doesn't work, and there's my gripes.
Yeah.
Still annoyed. However, for you, Mike, you will see a unit of Household Knights back onto the table, so I hope you hate that.
Yeah, well, how lucky for me.
Well, you get to play dinos.
Yeah, I know, I'm loading up on dinosaurs. This actually has opened up list building a lot. I mean, not to get too far into the 2.1 takes, but it's opened up list building a little bit. I'm actually excited to revisit Woodrune and see how they work out. This might be the battle report I actually finish, instead of just deciding that I didn't take pictures good enough and now it's too long and I forgot too many details. But I doubt it. But yeah, I guess we'll be coming at it with the revised army list takes soon enough, and give everybody our very well reasoned and not at all reactionary opinions about a bunch of numbers in a table.
Well, there's stuff I look at and I'm like, nah, this is still bad, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna just like, this is still bad. I'm still gonna try and get the games in, play the games, actually do the work.
Yeah.
But like, I've played enough Crimson Towers, and they still played the same way as I did before. While House of Knights actually are like usable, do the damage, do everything I want out of them. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna transition towards Household Knights as my hammer unit, and the Crimson Towers are sadly going back on the shelf because the main problem with them has not been fixed.
Yeah.
And like, do I expect everything to get touched all the time? No. But I do want to make, like, I still want to, point this out and say, hey, look, like, maybe there's a different problem here.
Yeah.
Or we have a platform. We do whatever we want. Like, God damn it. But mostly we just want to talk about the game and just like scenario. It's a big part of the game. We talked about it.
We did.
Play melee.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Should
get
we
it.
call it there?
Yeah, we should. But I'm gonna get a T-shirt made that just simply has the text "Scenario 7 Melee."
God damn it! If you do that, I'm gonna make a BonkTable Facebook and I'm gonna take a picture of you and that's gonna be the picture.
I 100%. If it was very easy, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would wear that shirt if it existed. But probably not gonna go to the trouble to actually execute on that stupid threat.
Oh, we could. There's custom shirt places. We
Oh,
can
yeah.
bring them a design. I can get a shirt made. You tell me your size.
Well, I actually know how to screen print, like the actual like physical process of doing it as well. So the only thing that's stopping me is me. But
oh, do you have the equipment? Because I learned how to
Kinda.
screen print back in high school, and I don't have the equipment.
yeah, I weirdly enough could probably rig something up. But anyway, this is far beyond the scope of a podcast at this point. I think it's probably the point where we gotta stop.
All right, everyone. You have a great night. I hope you enjoyed this episode and our rants about scenario and whatever else we talked about
Alright.
in our split. And you're excited for the new army rules and you get to play some games and see how your faction has changed, hopefully for the better for everyone. And yeah.
And in addition to a great night, fantastic afternoon, a wonderful day, or a fucking shitty morning, depending on what time of the day you're listening to this.
Just pound back that coffee. You need it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good whatever, everybody.
Bye.